Welcome aboard, friends. You're now tuned into another Harry. We're super excited to share today's story with you. What if Wednesday challenged Dumbledore for Harry's custody and destroyed his reputation? If you enjoy what we do here, the best way to support us is by liking, commenting, and subscribing. We read every comment. Ready? Let's go. Chapter 1, Blood will tell. The ancient grimoire on the desk pulsed with a dull red glow. Wednesday Addams paused her reading, placing one pale finger on the throbbing page. Names appeared and disappeared on the enchanted parchment daily. Magical children in distress was hardly unusual, but this particular name had been glowing consistently for nearly 10 years. Harry Potter, Wednesday read aloud, her voice flat yet somehow cutting through the silence of her bedroom like a scalpel. She tapped the name, and additional information materialized in spidery script. Location, Number 4, Privet Drive, Little Whinging, Surrey, England. Status, ongoing magical suppression. Physical neglect. Emotional abuse. Guardian, Vernon and Petunia Dursley, maternal aunt, non-magical. Magical guardian, Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore. Wednesday's dark eyes narrowed. The Addams family grimoire of endangered magical children rarely bothered with cases outside the Americas, yet this British boy had triggered its strongest alert. "Mother," Wednesday called, not raising her voice. Morticia Addams appeared in the doorway almost instantly, as if she'd been waiting for the summons. "Yes, Wednesday dear." Morticia glided into the room, her black dress trailing behind her. "I need to go to England." Wednesday turned the grimoire toward her mother. "This boy has been on our list for a decade. His magical signature is unusual." Morticia leaned over the book, her long fingers tracing the boy's name. "Harry Potter. Ah, the British child who survived the killing curse. Quite famous over there." "Famous and abused," Wednesday stated. "Interesting combination." Morticia's perfectly arched eyebrow rose slightly. "Albus Dumbledore is his magical guardian. That complicates matters. The British ministry doesn't appreciate our family's approach to magic." "The ministry can rot in their bureaucratic hell," Wednesday replied. "The grimoire wouldn't have flagged him without reason. I've graduated Salem Institute. I'm legally an adult witch. They can't stop me." "Of course not, darling." Morticia's lips curved into a proud smile. "Your father and I would never dream of interfering with your pursuit of justice. I merely suggest discretion. Dumbledore has international influence." Wednesday nodded once, already mentally packing. "I'll bring Grandmama's emergency potions kit. And Thing. A wise choice. Thing is quite adept at gathering evidence." Morticia glided toward the door, pausing to add, "Do let us know if you need your father to declare blood feud. You know how he loves those." 3 days later, Wednesday Addams stood on Privet Drive, surveying the painfully identical houses with undisguised contempt. She wore a simple black dress despite the summer heat, her dark hair in tight braids, carrying a small leather satchel that occasionally twitched of its own accord. "Mundane to the point of psychological warfare," she muttered. "No wonder the magic detection wards registered suppression." A disembodied hand crawled out from her bag, tapping her shoulder. "Yes, Thing. I see it too." The hand pointed urgently toward number 4, where a small black-haired boy was now visible, kneeling in the garden beds, pulling weeds under the merciless sun. Even from a distance, Wednesday noted his too large clothes, the pronounced boniness of his frame, and the careful, practiced movements of someone accustomed to punishment for the slightest mistake. "Predictable," she said, her voice cold with anger. "The magical signature is practically screaming." Wednesday crossed the street directly, ignoring the twitching curtains from nosy neighbors. The boy, Harry, hadn't noticed her yet, focused intently on separating dandelions from petunias. "Harry Potter," she said. He startled badly, nearly falling backward into the flower bed. When he looked up, Wednesday noted several things simultaneously: the lightning scar partially hidden under unruly bangs, the startling green eyes magnified by broken glasses held together with tape, and the instinctive way he raised his arm to protect his face before catching himself. "How do you know my name?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Magic," Wednesday answered bluntly. "I'm Wednesday Adams. You're being abused, and your magical guardian is either incompetent or malicious. I'm here to fix that." Harry's eyes widened further. "Magic isn't real. Please don't waste my time with conditioned denials." Wednesday held out her hand, and Thing crawled onto her palm. "This is Thing. He's a family member." Thing waved cheerfully at Harry, who stared in shock. "Your relatives have lied to you," Wednesday continued. "You're a wizard. A reasonably powerful one, based on my readings. Your parents weren't killed in a car crash but murdered by a dark wizard. And someone named Albus Dumbledore decided you should live in suburban hell with magic-hating relatives rather than with your own kind." Harry's face had gone completely pale. "How do you?" The front door of number 4 slammed open. "Boy! Who are you talking to out there?" Vernon Dursley stomped into view, his face already reddening at the sight of Wednesday. "Who the devil are you? Get off my property." Wednesday didn't move. "Mr. Dursley. Your reputation for magical prejudice precedes you. Unfortunate, as I've come to discuss your nephew's magical education and living arrangements." Vernon's face progressed from red to purple so quickly it was almost impressive. "There's no such thing as magic," Wednesday finished. "Lies waste time, and I value efficiency." She flicked her wrist, and a slender black wand appeared in her hand. With a casual motion, she transformed Vernon's prized roses into a writhing mass of thorny black vines that began slowly creeping up the house's exterior. Vernon made a strangled sound. Harry stared at the vines in awe. Inside, Vernon hissed, looking frantically at the neighboring houses. "Before someone sees." "An unexpected moment of intelligence," Wednesday commented, following as Vernon hustled Harry through the door with a rough grip on his collar. The moment they were inside, Vernon rounded on her. "I don't know what freakish school sent you, but we want nothing to do with your kind. We took the boy in out of the goodness of our hearts." "Mr. Dursley," Wednesday interrupted, "your heart rate increases when you lie. I find dishonesty tedious." "Thing, the documents." The disembodied hand jumped from her shoulder, scurried to her bag, and retrieved a folder, which it presented to Vernon. Vernon recoiled. "What in God's name?" "Thing is a perfectly normal magical construct," Wednesday said. "The documents he's offering detail the monthly stipend you've received from the Potter Trust for Harry's care. Approximately 500 galleons monthly, equivalent to £2,500 in your currency. Over 10 years, you've received roughly £300,000. Vernon's face lost its color. From the hallway, Petunia gasped. "I see Mrs. Dursley has joined us," Wednesday noted without turning. "Excellent. Family discussions should include all parties. Where did you get those records?" Petunia whispered. "Those payments are private. Gringotts goblins value client confidentiality," Wednesday agreed. "However, the Addams family has maintained excellent relations with the Goblin Nation for centuries. Blood recognizes blood, as we say." Harry looked between them all, confusion giving way to anger. "You've been paid to keep me all this time?" "Quiet, boy," Vernon snapped. "You should be grateful we didn't dump you at an orphanage." "Actually," Wednesday cut in, "according to your parents' will, which I accessed yesterday, an orphanage would have been preferable to placement with the Dursleys, who were specifically excluded as potential guardians." Harry's eyes flashed. "My parents left a will." "Indeed. Sealed by one Albus Dumbledore immediately after their deaths." Wednesday turned her cold gaze back to the Dursleys. "My purpose here is twofold. First, to inform Mr. Potter of his heritage, which you've deliberately concealed. Second, to initiate custody proceedings." The Addams family will be challenging Dumbledore's guardianship. Take him, Petunia said immediately. We never wanted. The rest of her sentence dissolved into a scream as the lights flickered violently. The temperature in the room plummeted, frost forming on the windows despite the summer heat outside. Mrs. Dursley, Wednesday said, her voice dangerously soft, I wasn't asking permission. I was informing you of legal proceedings. The difference is significant. Your treatment of Mr. Potter constitutes criminal child abuse under both magical and non-magical law. You can't prove anything, Vernon blustered, though his voice had risen an octave. Wednesday smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Thing has been gathering evidence since we arrived. Additionally, I'll be taking Mr. Potter for a medical examination at St. Mungo's Hospital, where a complete diagnostic record will document every injury, every period of malnutrition, every instance of neglect. Magical healing is quite thorough. Vernon lunged forward suddenly, grabbing for Wednesday's wand. You listen here, his words cut off abruptly as he froze mid-motion, body rigid. Wandless paralysis curse, Wednesday explained to Harry. A specialty in my family. We find it useful when dealing with particularly aggravating individuals. She turned to Harry. Pack whatever possessions you value. We're leaving immediately. Harry hesitated. But Dumbledore said I have to stay here. For protection. From what? Wednesday countered. The dark wizard who tried to kill you is reportedly gone. Meanwhile, you're suffering documented abuse from your supposed protectors. She gestured at Vernon's frozen form. Protection that endangers is no protection at all. Harry didn't need further convincing. He disappeared up the stairs, returning minutes later with a pathetically small bundle of belongings. My school things are locked in the cupboard under the stairs, he admitted. Uncle Vernon took them when summer started. Wednesday's expression darkened. With a flick of her wand, the cupboard door burst open, revealing a trunk, broomstick, and wand. Your magical focus should never be separated from you, she said, handing Harry his wand. It's practically criminal. The moment Harry's fingers closed around his wand, sparks shot from the tip, and the lights flickered again, this time accompanied by a warm breeze rather than frost. Interesting reaction, Wednesday noted. Magical suppression breaking. We'll need to monitor that. As Harry gathered his school supplies, a snowy owl in a cage hooted from upstairs. Hedwig! Harry exclaimed. They locked her up too. Wednesday released Vernon from the paralysis spell but kept her wand trained on him. Released the owl immediately. Vernon, still unable to speak from the lingering effects, stomped upstairs and returned with the cage, practically throwing it at Harry. Careful, Wednesday warned. Animal abuse is also documented in my report. Once Harry had gathered everything, Wednesday handed him a black business card embossed with silver writing. Hold this. It's a port key, a magical transportation device. It will take us directly to our next destination. Where are we going? Harry asked, clutching his belongings. Hogwarts, Wednesday replied. I believe it's time I had a conversation with Albus Dumbledore about his guardianship choices. Before activating the port key, Wednesday turned to the Dursleys one last time. The vines outside will continue to grow until a decision is reached regarding Harry's custody. Consider them a visual reminder of your obligations. They won't harm anyone, unless someone attempts to harm Harry's interests. She tapped the card in Harry's hand. Memento Mori. With a violent jerk behind their navels, Wednesday and Harry vanished from Privet Drive, leaving the Dursleys staring in horror as black roses began blooming on the vines outside, each bearing a tiny skull in their centers. They landed in Hogsmeade Village rather than Hogwarts itself. The castle's wards prevent direct transportation inside, Wednesday explained as Harry regained his balance. An elementary security measure, though clearly insufficient given last year's events. Harry looked startled. How do you know about last year? The attempted theft of the Philosopher's Stone. Your confrontation with Quirrell and Voldemort. It's documented in the grimoire. Wednesday began walking toward the castle, her pace brisk. Placing an object of such power in a school full of children shows questionable judgment at best. As they approached Hogwarts, Harry grew increasingly nervous. Professor Dumbledore isn't a bad person, he said. He's helped me a lot. Perhaps, Wednesday allowed. But good intentions don't negate harmful outcomes. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, as my grandmother says. She would know, she's been there 3 times on holiday. The castle doors opened as they approached. Professor McGonagall stood waiting, her expression a mixture of surprise and concern. Mr. Potter. What are you doing here? And who is this? Her Scottish accent thickened with alarm. Wednesday Addams, Salem Institute graduate, representing the Addams family's interest in Mr. Potter's welfare. Wednesday extended a formal business card. I've removed Mr. Potter from an abusive environment and wish to speak with Headmaster Dumbledore regarding his magical guardianship. McGonagall's lips thinned to nearly nothing. The headmaster is currently away on ICW business. How convenient, Wednesday remarked. Then perhaps you can explain why a magical child was placed with documented magic-hating muggles against his parents' explicit wishes. McGonagall blanched. That is, she looked at Harry, who was examining his shoes intently. Mr. Potter, are these allegations true? Have the Dursleys mistreated you? Harry looked up, conflict written across his face. Wednesday noted how deeply his instinct to minimize and protect ran, classic abuse response. Tell her about the cupboard, Wednesday suggested. Harry swallowed hard. I slept in the cupboard under the stairs. Until my Hogwarts letter came. McGonagall's face went white. For how long? 10 years, Harry admitted quietly. The Scottish witch's wand hand twitched. I told him, she whispered, almost to herself. I told Albus they were the worst sort of muggles. Yet you didn't check on him, Wednesday pointed out. No magical authority did. For 10 years. McGonagall drew herself up. Miss Addams, while I share your concerns, you cannot simply remove a student from their home without, I can and have, Wednesday interrupted. Under the International Confederation of Wizards Child Protection Statute of 1892, any qualified witch or wizard may remove a magical child from immediate danger. My credentials are valid internationally. She produced another document from her seemingly bottomless bag. Additionally, as the grimoire has identified Mr. Potter as magically endangered, the Addams family has invoked our traditional right of intervention. The Addams family has no standing in British wizard law, McGonagall protested, though with visibly less conviction. Incorrect. The Treaty of Salem, 1706, explicitly extends reciprocal protection rights to all signatory families. The Addams were founding signatories. Wednesday's knowledge of magical law was clearly extensive. Hogwarts Charter recognizes the treaty, as does the Wisengamot. McGonagall closed her eyes briefly. Let us continue this discussion in my office. As they followed McGonagall through the castle corridors, Harry whispered to Wednesday, how do you know all this stuff about laws and treaties? The Addams family has been persecuted for our magical practices for centuries, Wednesday replied. Legal knowledge becomes a necessity when society regularly attempts to burn your relatives at the stake. McGonagall's office was warm and practical, with tartan accents and a desk free of clutter. Once they were seated, she fixed Wednesday with a penetrating stare. Miss Addams, while I don't dispute that Mr. Potter's home situation sounds deeply concerning, there are protective measures in place that you may not understand. Blood wards, based on his mother's sacrifice, Wednesday stated flatly. I'm well aware. However, such protections are rendered meaningless when the protected individual suffers more danger within the wards than without. She extracted a crystal vial from her bag, filled with swirling silver liquid. This contains my memory of our visit to Privet Drive today. I invite you to view it in the headmaster's pensieve. McGonagall hesitated, then nodded curtly. Wait here. When she had gone, Harry turned to Wednesday. What exactly are you hoping to accomplish? Justice, Wednesday said simply. And protection that actually protects. But Voldemort is reportedly a disembodied wraith, based on your encounter. Yet Dumbledore keeps you isolated from magical society, untrained, unaware of your heritage, and physically vulnerable due to systematic neglect. Wednesday's dark eyes held Harry's. Doesn't that strike you as counterproductive if you're meant to survive future encounters? Harry had no answer. McGonagall returned with a stone basin etched with runes. The pensieve, she explained to Harry. It allows one to view memories. Wednesday poured the silvery substance into the basin. Shall we? 20 minutes later, McGonagall emerged from the memory white-faced and shaking. She took one look at Harry and immediately transformed a quill into a plate of sandwiches. Eat, Mr. Potter, she said, her voice uncharacteristically gentle. You're too thin by half. While Harry ate, McGonagall turned to Wednesday. I owe you an apology, Miss Adams. And a far greater one to Mr. Potter. I had no idea the situation was so dire. Yet you suspected, Wednesday pointed out. You admitted telling Dumbledore they were the worst sort of muggles. McGonagall looked stricken. I should have checked. I should have insisted. She squared her shoulders suddenly. What do you propose, Miss Adams? Until the headmaster returns, I am acting in his stead. First, Mr. Potter needs a complete medical evaluation. Second, I'm filing for emergency custody review with the Wizengamot. Third, an investigation into how and why his parents' will was sealed. Wednesday listed each point with clinical precision. I'll also be speaking with the other professors about Mr. Potter's first-year experiences. The incident with the Philosopher's Stone raises serious questions about student safety protocols. I can arrange for Madame Pomfrey to examine Mr. Potter immediately, McGonagall agreed. The other matters. She hesitated. The headmaster has significant influence in the Wizengamot. So does the Adams family, when necessary, Wednesday countered. And unlike Dumbledore, we have no qualms about leveraging our more unconventional connections. Harry, who had been silently working through the sandwiches, finally spoke. Do I get any say in this? Both witches turned to him. Of course, Wednesday said. That's the point. You've had choices made for you without consultation for too long. What would you like, Mr. Potter? McGonagall asked gently. Harry looked between them, a complexity of emotions crossing his face. I want to understand. Why was I left there? Why did no one check? What does my parents' will actually say? His voice grew stronger with each question. And I don't want to go back to the Dursleys. Ever. That's a start, Wednesday nodded. Information and agency are fundamental rights. McGonagall's expression was pained. Mr. Potter, while I cannot speak for the headmaster's decisions, I deeply regret my own failure to verify your welfare. It seems we have all failed you quite spectacularly. A sudden flash of fire interrupted them. Fawkes, Dumbledore's phoenix, appeared in the center of the office, dropped a letter on McGonagall's desk, and disappeared in another burst of flame. McGonagall opened it quickly, her expression growing troubled. The headmaster is returning immediately. He expresses concern about unauthorized removal of Mr. Potter from his relative's care. How did he know? Harry asked. Monitoring spells, most likely, Wednesday suggested. Blood-based, given the ward structure. That's highly illegal without guardian consent, McGonagall said sharply. Add it to the list of concerns, Wednesday replied, unperturbed. How soon will he arrive? Within the hour. McGonagall stood. I'll take Mr. Potter to the hospital wing for that examination immediately. Perhaps it would be best if you accompanied us, Miss Adams. As they walked through the empty summer corridors, Harry asked, "Why are you doing this? You didn't know me before today." Wednesday considered him for a moment. The Addams family has a long history of protecting magical children from persecution. It's something of a family tradition, born from our own experiences. Magic that's suppressed becomes dangerous, to the child and others. Also, she added as an afterthought, I detest bullies. Particularly those who hide behind respectability and greater good platitudes. In the hospital wing, Madame Pomfrey greeted Harry warmly before her professional demeanor took over. When Wednesday explained their purpose, the matron's kindly expression hardened. "I've been saying something wasn't right since his first checkup," she muttered, directing Harry to a bed. Albus insisted the monitoring charms showed adequate care. The diagnostic examination took nearly 40 minutes. With each pass of Madame Pomfrey's wand, the parchment recording Harry's medical history grew longer. The matron's expression grew increasingly grim. "Mr. Potter," she finally said, "you have evidence of multiple improperly healed fractures, chronic malnutrition dating back to infancy, untreated illnesses, and several indicators of long-term stress on your magical core." She looked at him sadly. "Why didn't you tell someone?" Harry shrugged uncomfortably. "I thought everyone knew. And then? I don't know. It didn't seem important compared to everything else happening." Evidence of normalization, Wednesday noted. Common in long-term abuse cases. McGonagall, who had been reading the medical report over Pomfrey's shoulder, looked physically ill. "Poppy, is this? Could this have affected his magic?" "Almost certainly," the matron confirmed. "He's been operating at a disadvantage. Chronic malnutrition affects magical development just as it does physical growth." Wednesday was making notes in a small black book. "This documentation will be crucial for the custody hearing." "There won't be a custody hearing." The new voice came from the hospital wing entrance, where Albus Dumbledore now stood, resplendent in midnight blue robes spangled with silver stars. His expression was grave, his eyes missing their customary twinkle. "Headmaster," McGonagall acknowledged, her Scottish burr more pronounced with emotion. "Have you seen this report?" "Minerva, we should discuss this privately," Dumbledore suggested, smiling benignly. "Mr. Potter needs rest, and our guest," his gaze shifted to Wednesday, "has overstepped international magical boundaries." "I've done nothing of the sort," Wednesday replied calmly. "My actions are fully compliant with the ICW Child Protection Statute and the Treaty of Salem." "Ah, but you see, Harry's case is unique," Dumbledore explained, as if to a particularly slow student. "The blood protection at his aunt's home is essential to his safety. It's regrettable that his home life isn't ideal, not ideal." McGonagall interrupted, brandishing the medical report. "Albus, the boy has had broken bones that never received proper treatment." "Unfortunate, certainly," Dumbledore acknowledged, "but the greater protection does not outweigh the harm," Wednesday finished firmly. "The law is clear on this point. No theoretical protection justifies documented abuse." Dumbledore's eyes narrowed slightly, his grandfatherly demeanor slipping. "Miss Addams, is it? You're very young to be involving yourself in such complex matters. Age doesn't guarantee wisdom, as evidenced by your decisions regarding Mr. Potter," Wednesday countered. "I've already filed preliminary papers with the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. An investigation into the sealing of the Potter's will is underway." For the first time, Dumbledore looked genuinely alarmed. "That was done for Harry's protection, by overriding his parents' explicit wishes?" Wednesday raised an eyebrow. "Interesting interpretation of protection." Harry, who had been watching this exchange silently, finally spoke up. "Professor Dumbledore, did you know about how the Dursleys treated me?" The direct question seemed to catch Dumbledore off guard. He hesitated a fraction too long before answering. "Harry, my boy, I knew they weren't the most loving guardians, but I believed they would care for you adequately. The blood protection your mother provided required love to strengthen it," Wednesday interrupted. "Basic principle of blood magic. The Dursleys' treatment weakened rather than reinforced those protections. Dumbledore's smile became strained. You seem remarkably knowledgeable about blood magic for one so young, Miss Adams. The Adams family wrote several of the definitive texts on blood magic, Wednesday stated flatly. Before your ministry classified them as too dark for public consumption. Harry looked between them, understanding dawning. So the protection wasn't even working properly. I suffered for nothing. Not for nothing, Harry, Dumbledore said gently. The sacrifice your mother made is being wasted, Wednesday finished. Mr. Potter deserves truth, not platitudes. Dumbledore's patience visibly thinned. Miss Adams, while I appreciate your concern, you have no legal standing here. Harry must return to his relatives for at least part of each summer. The blood wards can be replicated and strengthened through proper ritual magic, Wednesday stated. The Adams family specializes in protection through blood and bone. We can create wards that don't require abuse as their foundation. Dark magic is not the answer, Dumbledore said firmly. Your categorization of magic as dark or light is both simplistic and culturally biased, Wednesday replied. Magic is intent and power. Nothing more, nothing less. The tension in the hospital wing was palpable. McGonagall and Pomfrey exchanged concerned glances as the air between Wednesday and Dumbledore practically crackled with magical energy. Harry broke the standoff. I want to know what my parents will say, he stated firmly. I want to know who I was supposed to go to. And I'm not going back to the Dursleys. Dumbledore sighed heavily. Harry, there are factors at play that you don't understand, then explain them, Harry challenged, with a confidence he seemed to have absorbed from Wednesday. I faced Voldemort last month. I think I deserve explanations. An excellent point, Wednesday agreed. Transparency or legal challenge, Headmaster Dumbledore. Choose one. For a brief moment, something dangerous flashed in Dumbledore's eyes, a reminder that beneath the grandfatherly exterior was one of the most powerful wizards alive. Very well, he conceded finally. But not here. My office would be more appropriate for such a discussion. As they made their way to the headmaster's office, Wednesday maintained a position between Harry and Dumbledore, her posture subtly protective. Harry noticed and gave her a small, grateful smile. Dumbledore's office was cluttered with silver instruments, many of which emitted soft whirring noises and puffs of colored smoke. Books lined the walls, and portraits of previous headmasters watched with undisguised interest. Sit, please, Dumbledore invited, conjuring comfortable chairs. Once they were seated, he steepled his fingers and regarded Wednesday thoughtfully. Miss Adams, I confess I'm curious how the Adams family became aware of Harry's situation. Your family rarely involves itself in British magical affairs. The Adams Grimoire of Endangered Magical Children identified Mr. Potter nearly a decade ago, Wednesday explained. As I recently completed my education, I chose to investigate personally. I see. Dumbledore's tone suggested he found this explanation insufficient. And you determined in a single afternoon that arrangements made by the chief warlock of the Wizengamot, with the consultation of the ministry, were inadequate? Yes, Wednesday said simply. Dumbledore blinked, clearly expecting a more defensive response. Harry suppressed a smile. The evidence speaks for itself, Wednesday continued. Mr. Potter's physical condition, the Dursleys' treatment, and the illegal sealing of his parents will constitute a pattern of decisions that prioritized your plans over his well-being. Everything I've done has been to protect Harry, Dumbledore insisted. From what? Wednesday challenged. Voldemort is currently disembodied. Death Eaters largely inactive. Yet Mr. Potter remains untrained, uninformed about his heritage and responsibilities, and physically compromised through systematic neglect. Dumbledore's gaze sharpened. You speak with remarkable certainty about Voldemort's condition, Miss Adams. The grimoire provides extensive information, Wednesday replied evenly. Additionally, the Adams family has our own sources regarding matters of unnatural extension of life. Harry looked between them, sensing undercurrents he didn't fully understand. "Could someone please tell me what my parents will actually said?" he asked, bringing the conversation back to its original purpose. Dumbledore sighed heavily. "Very well." He opened a drawer in his desk and removed an official-looking parchment bearing multiple seals. "This is a copy. The original remains in Ministry archives." He passed it to Harry, who immediately began reading, Wednesday looking over his shoulder. "Sirius Black was supposed to be my guardian," Harry said after a moment, confusion evident. "Then the Longbottoms. Then Professor McGonagall." He looked up sharply. "There's a whole list of people. The Dursleys aren't on it at all. In fact, it specifically says I shouldn't go to them under any circumstances." "Sirius Black betrayed your parents to Voldemort," Dumbledore explained gently. "The Longbottoms were tortured into insanity shortly after your parents' deaths. The other named guardians were either killed in the war or deemed unsuitable due to various circumstances. Such as?" Wednesday pressed. "Remus Lupin's lycanthropy made him legally ineligible," Dumbledore said. "Minerva's position here at Hogwarts would have made full-time guardianship impractical. The others had ties to dark families or questionable associations that would have put Harry at risk. So instead, you chose to place him with explicitly excluded Muggle relatives who hate magic," Wednesday summarized. "Without monitoring his welfare. Without informing him of his heritage. Without executing the financial provisions of the will." Dumbledore's expression hardened slightly. "The blood protection is compromised by abuse," Wednesday interrupted. "As we've established." Harry was still reading the will, his expression growing increasingly troubled. "There's a trust vault I was supposed to have access to starting at age 8. For education before Hogwarts. And investments I was supposed to be briefed on when I turned 10. He looked up. "I didn't know about any of this until Hagrid took me to Gringotts last year." "Harry, these financial matters are complex," Dumbledore began. "I felt it best to shield you from such burdens until you were older. Yet the will specifically states these provisions," Wednesday noted. "Which you, as executor, were legally obligated to fulfill." "The circumstances were exceptional," Dumbledore insisted. "Decisions had to be made quickly, with Harry's safety as the priority." 10 years is hardly quickly," Wednesday countered. "You had ample time to implement proper monitoring, educational support, and financial oversight as required by the will." Harry set down the parchment, his expression unreadable. "Why didn't Sirius Black get a trial?" he asked suddenly. "The will says he had sworn a magical oath as my godfather. It says breaking that oath would have killed him." Dumbledore appeared momentarily thrown by this change in direction. "The evidence against Sirius was overwhelming, Harry." "Those were chaotic times." "That doesn't answer my question," Harry pressed, with a directness that seemed inspired by Wednesday's approach. "Did he get a trial? Is there a transcript I can read?" "I don't believe a formal trial was conducted," Dumbledore admitted reluctantly. "The Ministry was processing dozens of Death Eater cases. Some were handled, administratively." Wednesday's eyes narrowed. "Convenient that the primary guardian named in the will was imprisoned without trial, leaving you free to place Mr. Potter according to your own plans." The accusation hung in the air. Several of the portraits gasped. "You go too far, Miss Adams," Dumbledore said, his voice suddenly cold. "I have only ever acted in Harry's best interest." "Then prove it," Wednesday challenged. "Support a proper investigation into Sirius Black's case. Cooperate fully with the custody review. Allow an independent assessment of the supposed blood protections at Privet Drive." Dumbledore studied her for a long moment. "You're remarkably persistent for one so young." "The Addams family doesn't yield when magical children's welfare is at stake," Wednesday replied. "We've fought this battle across continents and centuries. Your reputation, while impressive, doesn't intimidate us." Dumbledore turned to Harry. "Harry, my boy, I understand you're upset. But there are greater factors at play than immediate comfort. Voldemort will return, is already attempting to return, as you've seen. The protection your mother provided is your strongest defense. Is it? Harry asked. Because it didn't stop Quirrell from nearly killing me last month. It didn't stop the troll at Halloween. It hasn't stopped anything, actually. His voice grew stronger with each statement. Meanwhile, I've been locked in a cupboard, starved, and treated like a house elf by the people who were supposed to be protecting me. The blood protection works specifically against Voldemort, Dumbledore explained patiently. Then why not just create protection specifically for that purpose? Harry asked. Why did I have to live with people who hate me? Because Dumbledore's plans require you to be malleable, Wednesday said quietly. Isolation, dependency, intermittent reinforcement, classic conditioning techniques. Dumbledore's eyes flashed dangerously. That is quite enough, Miss Adams. You're putting dangerous ideas into Harry's head. I'm stating observable facts, Wednesday countered. Mr. Potter shows all the psychological markers of systematic conditioning. Accepting authority without question. Prioritizing others' needs above basic self-preservation. Normalized deprivation. These aren't accidental outcomes. Harry stared at Dumbledore, waiting for a denial that didn't come. I'm not going back there, Harry said finally, his voice quiet but firm. I don't care about the blood protection. It's not worth it. Dumbledore sighed deeply. Harry, no, Harry interrupted. You lied to me. You kept me from knowing about my parents' will, about my godfather, about everything. You left me with people who hate magic, who hate me, who told me my parents died in a car crash. His voice rose with each accusation. And now you want me to just trust that you know best. The office fell silent except for the whirring of silver instruments. Dumbledore suddenly looked every one of his many years, the weight of Harry's words visibly affecting him. I never intended for you to suffer, Harry, he said quietly. I truly believe the protection outweighed the hardships. Intent doesn't negate impact, Wednesday stated. Mr. Potter has suffered measurable harm under your guardianship. That's the legal and ethical reality we're addressing. Dumbledore rose slowly from his chair, moving to the window. For a moment, he simply gazed out over the Hogwarts grounds. What do you propose, Miss Adams? He finally asked, without turning around. A full Wisengamot hearing regarding Mr. Potter's custody, Wednesday replied promptly. Investigation into Sirius Black's case. Complete medical treatment for Mr. Potter. And temporary custody assigned to a neutral party until matters are resolved. And where would Harry stay in the meantime? Dumbledore asked. Hogwarts would be acceptable, with proper supervision, Wednesday said. Alternatively, the Addams family estate in Scotland could accommodate him. Harry looked surprised. You have a house in Scotland? Castle, technically, Wednesday corrected. 17th century. Moderately haunted. Despite everything, Harry grinned. Sounds brilliant. Dumbledore turned back to face them. I cannot in good conscience agree to remove Harry from the blood protection without alternative safeguards in place. The Addams family can establish replacement protections within 24 hours, Wednesday stated. Old magic. Stronger than the current wards, which have been degraded by the absence of familial love. Dumbledore's expression remained skeptical. Blood magic of that nature is considered dark by Ministry standards. Intent determines the nature of magic, not arbitrary Ministry classifications, Wednesday replied. The intent is protection. Nothing more, nothing less. Harry, who had been watching this exchange closely, suddenly spoke up. I want to try something else. Something better than living with people who hate me. He turned to Wednesday. What exactly would these alternative protections involve? A ritual combining your mother's original sacrifice with additional protective elements, Wednesday explained. No harmful components. No unwilling participants. Simply a redirection and strengthening of existing protections. Harry nodded decisively. Then that's what I want. He turned to Dumbledore. I'm not asking permission, Professor. I'm telling you what's going to happen. I'm not going back to the Dursleys. Dumbledore studied Harry for a long moment, something like surprise flickering in his eyes. You've changed, Harry. Just in these few hours. I've just learned that I have choices, Harry replied simply. Wednesday observed this exchange with approval. Already, Harry was showing signs of developing agency, the first step toward breaking the conditioning Dumbledore had fostered. Very well, Dumbledore said finally. I will not oppose temporary alternative arrangements, provided adequate protections are established. However, I maintain that the Wisengamot hearing is unnecessary. As Chief Warlock, I can authorize. That's exactly the problem, Wednesday interrupted. Your multiple positions of authority create conflicts of interest. This matter requires independent review. Before Dumbledore could respond, the office door burst open. Professor Snape strode in, his black robes billowing, expression thunderous. Headmaster, is it true? He demanded without preamble. Potter has been removed from his relatives. The blood protection compromised. Ah, Sirius, Dumbledore greeted calmly. Yes, we're discussing alternative arrangements for Harry's summer residence. Snape's gaze swept over Harry, then fixed on Wednesday with instant suspicion. And who is this? Wednesday Addams, Salem Institute, Wednesday introduced herself. I've initiated custody proceedings for Mr. Potter based on documented abuse and neglect. Snape's expression flickered, something unreadable passing across his features as he looked at Harry again. Abuse? Yes, Professor, Harry said quietly. The Dursleys weren't kind. Snape turned to Dumbledore, his voice dangerously soft. You assured me he was safe. Pampered, even. The situation is more nuanced than it appears, Sirius, Dumbledore began. No, it isn't, Wednesday contradicted. The medical report is quite clear. Systematic neglect, periodic physical abuse, psychological mistreatment. She fixed Snape with her penetrating gaze. Perhaps you'd like to review it, Professor. Given your position as a head of house, you have a professional obligation regarding child welfare cases. Something strange happened then. Snape's customary sneer faltered as he accepted the report from Madame Pomfrey. As he read, his already pale complexion whitened further. Malnourishment, untreated fractures, evidence of confinement. He read aloud, his voice growing colder with each item. He looked up at Dumbledore. This was allowed to continue for 10 years. Despite my specific questions about his welfare. The blood protection, Dumbledore began. Is meaningless if the boy is too weakened to defend himself, Snape snapped, surprising everyone with his vehemence. Basic physical health is a prerequisite for magical resilience. Any competent defense instructor would know this. Wednesday watched this interaction with interest. You seem concerned, Professor Snape. I was led to believe you disliked Mr. Potter. Snape's black eyes fixed on her. My personal feelings are irrelevant to professional obligations regarding child welfare. He turned back to Dumbledore. I assume alternative arrangements are being made. Miss Addams has proposed a modified protection ritual, Dumbledore confirmed reluctantly. Addams, Snape repeated, recognition dawning. The American family specializing in death magic and ancestral protections. Among other disciplines, Wednesday confirmed. Snape nodded curtly. Their work on blood-based protections is unorthodox but effective. I've studied their published research. This unexpected support from Snape seemed to catch Dumbledore off guard. He peered at his potions master over his half-moon spectacles. Sirius, surely you understand the risks of tampering with Lily's protection? I understand the risks of leaving her son with abusive muggles, Snape countered sharply. The medical evidence suggests the protection is already compromised. The foundation of blood protection is familial love, headmaster. Without it, the wards weaken progressively. Wednesday gave Snape an appraising look. You're knowledgeable about blood magic, Professor. I'm a potions master, Snape replied stiffly. Blood magic is fundamental to advanced brewing. Harry was watching this exchange with undisguised amazement. Snape, defending him against Dumbledore. The world had turned upside down in a matter of hours. Then perhaps Professor Snape could assist with the modified protection ritual, Wednesday suggested. His expertise would be valuable, and his connection to Mr. Potter's mother might strengthen the magical resonance. Snape's expression became guarded. My connection? You were childhood friends, Wednesday stated. The grimoire provides extensive background on individuals significant to endangered children. Snape shot a sharp look at Dumbledore, who appeared equally surprised by Wednesday's knowledge. Miss Adams, Dumbledore said carefully, you seem to possess remarkably detailed information about matters that aren't public knowledge. The Adams family has extensive resources, Wednesday replied simply. We take our responsibility to magical children seriously. Harry, increasingly confused by the undercurrents, finally spoke up. So what happens now? Where do I go? What about the custody hearing? Wednesday turned to him. I'll file the formal papers today. Until the hearing, you'll need a safe residence. Professor Snape's involvement in the protection ritual would be optimal, given his expertise and connection to your mother. I haven't agreed to participate, Snape pointed out, though without his usual venom. But you recognize the necessity of removing Mr. Potter from an abusive environment, Wednesday countered. Snape's jaw tightened. After a moment, he gave a curt nod. I would need to review the proposed ritual in detail before committing. Of course, Wednesday agreed. I can provide the grimoire's documentation. Dumbledore, watching this exchange with growing concern, finally intervened. Harry will remain at Hogwarts until these matters are settled. The castle's protections are second only to Gringotts. Acceptable as a temporary measure, Wednesday conceded. Provided Professor McGonagall serves as his primary supervisor, given her named status in the Potter will. Minerva has other summer obligations, Dumbledore objected. I can adjust my schedule, McGonagall's voice came from the doorway, where she stood with a determined expression. Mr. Potter's welfare takes priority. Harry, who had remained surprisingly calm throughout these negotiations, finally smiled, a genuine expression that reached his eyes. So I don't have to go back to the Dursleys. Ever. Not if I have anything to say about it, Wednesday confirmed. And the Addams family generally gets what it wants when it comes to protecting magical children. Dumbledore sighed heavily. Harry, I hope one day you'll understand that everything I've done has been for your protection. Maybe, Harry allowed. But I think I'd rather be happy and a little less protected than safe and miserable. Wednesday nodded approvingly. Already, Harry was showing signs of independent thinking, questioning the false dichotomy Dumbledore had established between safety and well-being. It's settled then, she stated. Mr. Potter remains at Hogwarts under Professor McGonagall's supervision. The custody hearing proceeds as legally required. Professor Snape reviews the protection ritual documentation. And I begin gathering testimony regarding Mr. Potter's experiences at Hogwarts and Privet Drive for the formal record. Dumbledore looked like he wanted to object further, but McGonagall cut him off. Albus, enough. We've failed this boy systematically for 10 years. It's time we put his welfare first, truly first, not as an afterthought to greater plans. Something in her tone, perhaps the rare note of genuine disappointment, seemed to reach Dumbledore in a way the legal arguments hadn't. He nodded slowly. Very well, Minerva. I bow to your judgment in this matter. He turned to Harry. I am truly sorry, my boy, if my decisions have caused you pain. That was never my intention. Harry nodded awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable with this uncharacteristic apology. I just want to understand why, he said finally. Why all the secrets? Why keep me in the dark about everything? A complex question, Dumbledore replied. One that deserves a thoughtful answer. Perhaps when things are more settled, we can discuss it properly. Translation: he needs time to construct a plausible explanation that doesn't reveal his actual motives, Wednesday commented dryly. Snape made a sound that might, from anyone else, have been a suppressed snort of amusement. Dumbledore's eyes lost their twinkle entirely. Miss Adams, your presumption is remarkable. Thank you, Wednesday replied, taking it as a compliment. The Adams family values directness. Harry, watching this exchange, couldn't help but smile. In Wednesday Adams, he'd found something he hadn't known he needed, someone who would fight for him without hesitation, without concern for propriety or politics. I'll show you to guest quarters, Mr. Potter, Miss Adams, McGonagall offered, clearly trying to defuse the tension. As they followed McGonagall from the office, Harry glanced back at the adults still engaged in tense conversation. I can't believe this is happening, he admitted quietly to Wednesday. Yesterday I was weeding Aunt Petunia's garden, thinking I had another 2 months of Dursley hell ahead of me. The magical world moves quickly when properly motivated, Wednesday replied. And the Adams family is very good at providing motivation. Harry looked at her curiously. Why are you really doing this? I mean, I appreciate it, more than I can say, but we've only just met. Wednesday considered the question with characteristic seriousness. The Adams family has a complicated history with magical authorities. For centuries, our practices have been deemed dark or dangerous by those who prefer magic neatly categorized and controlled. We've seen how establishments like your ministry or your headmaster manipulate definitions of right and wrong to maintain power. She glanced at him. Your case exemplifies this problem perfectly. Dumbledore made unilateral decisions about your life based on his personal vision of the greater good, disregarding both law and ethics. That pattern affects all magical society, but is most damaging to children like yourself, those with unusual power or unusual circumstances. Harry absorbed this. So it's about justice? In a bigger sense? Partially, Wednesday acknowledged. It's also about magical potential. Your ability to develop fully as a wizard has been systematically undermined. That offends me on principle. She paused, then added something unexpected, and perhaps I recognize something of myself in your situation. The Adams family is not conventional. I understand what it means to be treated as an oddity rather than a person. This brief glimpse of personal connection surprised Harry. Thanks, he said simply. For seeing me. Not just the boy who lived or whatever. Wednesday nodded once, briskly. We have substantial work ahead. The custody hearing is only the beginning. Dumbledore won't relinquish control easily. I'm ready, Harry said with unexpected firmness. Whatever it takes. Wednesday's lips curved in the barest suggestion of a smile. Good. The Adams family appreciates determination. As McGonagall showed them to adjacent guest rooms in the castle's east wing, Harry felt something he hadn't experienced before, a sense of cautious hope. For the first time in his life, someone was fighting exclusively for him, without ulterior motives or greater plans. It was, he decided, a rather nice feeling. Word spread quickly through Hogwarts' summer skeleton staff. By dinner, the great hall buzzed with subdued conversation as the few remaining professors observed Harry and his unusual advocate with poorly concealed curiosity. Wednesday ignored the attention completely, methodically making notes in her black book between bites of rare steak. Harry, less accustomed to being the center of attention for this particular reason, shifted uncomfortably under the scrutiny. They're trying to reconcile the Harry Potter they thought they knew with the reality, Wednesday observed without looking up. It's disconcerting when carefully constructed narratives collapse. What do you mean? Harry asked. Dumbledore has promoted a specific image of your life, Wednesday explained. The tragic but treasured orphan, safely hidden away, being prepared for his eventual return to the wizarding world. The reality, neglected, uninformed, maltreated, contradicts that narrative. Professor Flitwick approached their table, his expression somber. Mr. Potter, Miss Adams, he greeted them. Minerva has informed me of the situation. I want to express my sincere regret for not recognizing the signs. Signs of what, Professor? Harry asked. Magical suppression, Flitwick said sadly. Your charm work shows classic patterns, bursts of exceptional power followed by inexplicable limitations. It's characteristic of young mages whose magic has developed defensively rather than systematically. Wednesday nodded. The diagnostic report showed significant magical stress markers. Professor Flitwick's observations confirmed the pattern. Harry frowned. So you're saying I'm not as good at magic as I should be? Because of the Dursleys? Not precisely, Flitwick corrected. Your magic has adapted to protect you under adverse conditions. That creates certain strengths, your defensive instincts are remarkable, but also limitations in methodical application. It can be addressed through proper training, Wednesday added. The Addams family has extensive experience with unconventional magical development. Flitwick's eyebrows rose. The Addams methodology is rather unorthodox by British standards, Miss Adams. Effectiveness matters more than orthodoxy, Wednesday replied simply. Before Flitwick could respond, the great hall doors opened to admit Professor Snape, who approached their table with his customary billowing walk. His expression was, as usual, unreadable, but something in his posture suggested tension. Miss Adams, he addressed Wednesday directly. I've reviewed your proposed ritual. The principles are sound, though I have questions about certain elements. Of course, Wednesday replied. The integration of potion components with the primary blood matrix is the most complex aspect. Snape nodded curtly. Precisely. The stabilization of the mother's sacrifice requires careful balancing. I've made notes. He handed her a roll of parchment covered in spidery writing. Harry watched this exchange in fascination. Snape was behaving with none of his usual hostility, instead engaging with Wednesday as a professional equal despite her youth. Thank you, Professor, Wednesday said, accepting the parchment. Your expertise in this area is valuable. Would tomorrow morning be convenient to discuss the modifications? 9 o'clock, my office, Snape agreed. His eyes flicked briefly to Harry. Potter should be present. The ritual requires his willing participation and basic understanding. Harry nearly dropped his fork in surprise. Snape wanting him involved. The day kept getting stranger. I'll be there, Harry promised. Snape gave a curt nod and swept away without further comment. He doesn't seem to hate me quite as much today, Harry observed once Snape was out of earshot. The medical report changed his perception, Wednesday explained. Abused children are a particular concern for him. Harry stared at her. How could you possibly know that? The grimoire provides extensive background on individuals significant to endangered children, Wednesday repeated her earlier explanation. Professor Snape's own childhood experiences inform his reactions. Snape was abused? Harry whispered, shocked. It's not my information to share in detail, Wednesday said. But suffice to say, the parallels between certain aspects of your situations likely triggered a reassessment. Harry fell silent, digesting this new perspective on his most antagonistic professor. After dinner, McGonagall escorted them back to their guest quarters. Miss Adams, I've arranged for full access to the Ministry tomorrow for your filing of the custody papers. Professor Dumbledore has agreed not to interfere with the legal process. He'd be unwise to try, Wednesday replied. The Addams family has extensive documentation of his actions regarding Mr. Potter. Obstruction would only strengthen our case. McGonagall's lips thinned. Albus has made serious errors of judgment in this matter, but he is not your enemy, Miss Adams. His intentions are irrelevant compared to his actions, Wednesday finished. Intent does not negate impact. The Scottish Witch sighed. You're remarkably inflexible for one so young. When a child's welfare is at stake. Yes. Wednesday's dark eyes met McGonagall's directly. You saw the medical report, Professor. You saw the evidence of decade-long neglect. Would flexibility serve justice in this case? McGonagall had the grace to look discomfited. No, she admitted finally. It would not. Then we understand each other. Wednesday nodded toward Harry's door. Mr. Potter needs rest. Tomorrow will be demanding. After McGonagall departed, Harry lingered in the corridor. Wednesday. Thank you. For everything today. Wednesday considered him for a moment. Thanks are unnecessary. This is merely the beginning. The real challenge lies ahead, not just securing your legal freedom from Dumbledore's control, but helping you understand and claim your magical heritage. My heritage? Harry repeated. The Potter family is ancient, with traditions and magic that extend far beyond what you've been taught, Wednesday explained. That knowledge has been deliberately withheld from you, part of the same pattern of control. Harry's expression hardened with determination. Then I want to learn. Everything. Wednesday nodded once, approving. Good. We begin tomorrow. Sleep well, Harry Potter. As Harry entered his room, he realized something remarkable had happened today. For the first time in his life, he felt truly seen, not as the boy who lived, not as James Potter's son, not as a weapon or a symbol or a pawn, but as himself. Harry. Just Harry. And it felt like the beginning of something important. Chapter 2, Skeletons in the Closet. Harry woke at dawn, momentarily confused by the unfamiliar ceiling above his four-poster bed. The events of yesterday crashed back into his consciousness, Wednesday Addams appearing at Privet Drive, the confrontation with Dumbledore, the revelations about his parents' will, and most importantly, the promise that he'd never return to the Dursleys. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. He opened the door to find Wednesday, already dressed in a crisp black dress with a white collar, looking as if she'd been awake for hours. Good morning, she said. We have 30 minutes before our meeting with Professor Snape. I've ordered breakfast to be delivered here. Harry ran a hand through his perpetually messy hair. You're really not a morning person, are you? He joked, noting her serious expression. I'm not a person, Wednesday replied flatly. But time is valuable, and we have much to accomplish today. As if on cue, a house elf appeared with a crack, carrying a tray loaded with food. Wednesday thanked the creature, surprising Harry, who hadn't expected such courtesy from her. What? She asked, noticing his expression. The Addams family has always maintained respectful relationships with magical beings. Prejudice is inefficient. Harry grinned as he grabbed a piece of toast. You make even being nice sound practical. It is practical. Wednesday poured herself black coffee. Now, about today. Professor Snape will help finalize the protection ritual. Then we visit the ministry to file the custody papers and initiate the investigation into Sirius Black's case. This afternoon, we go to Gringotts to examine your financial situation. Harry nodded, appreciating her directness. And the custody hearing? Scheduled for tomorrow. My family will arrive this evening to provide additional leverage. She sipped her coffee. The Wizengamot will try to delay. Dumbledore has significant influence there, despite his recusal from your case. Your family's coming? Harry asked, suddenly nervous. What are they like? Something almost resembling a smile flickered across Wednesday's face. They're unique. My father Gomez is passionate about everything, especially justice for magical children. My mother Morticia is more subtle but equally determined. Pugsley, my brother, enjoys explosives. And Grandmama specializes in potions that most British wizards would classify as illegal. They sound brilliant, Harry said sincerely. Wednesday studied him for a moment. Most people find the Addams family disturbing. I grew up in a cupboard under the stairs, Harry replied with a shrug. Normal is overrated. For the first time, Wednesday gave him a genuine smile, small but real. Finish eating. Snape doesn't tolerate tardiness. 20 minutes later, they descended into the dungeons. Harry felt the familiar knot of tension that always accompanied interactions with Snape, despite the professor's unexpectedly supportive stance yesterday. Snape's office door opened before they could knock. Enter, he commanded. The office looked different than Harry remembered, less oppressive somehow. The specimen jars had been moved to side shelves, and the center of the room was occupied by a large table covered with parchments, potion ingredients, and what appeared to be a detailed diagram drawn in silver ink. Miss Adams, Potter, Snape greeted them with a curt nod. I've integrated your proposed modifications with several adaptations of my own. He gestured to the diagram. The central matrix now incorporates elements from Lily's original sacrifice while adding the Adams' familial protection components. Wednesday moved immediately to examine the diagram. You've adjusted the northeastern anchor point. To accommodate the lack of familial love in the original protection, Snape confirmed. Your design assumed a foundation that doesn't exist. This variation compensates by drawing more heavily on Potter's own magical signature. Harry stared between them, fascinated by the easy exchange of complex magical theory. I see you've incorporated a vengeance element, Wednesday observed, pointing to a series of symbols. A reasonable precaution, Snape replied. The original protection had passive elements only. This adds an active defense component. Harry interrupted hesitantly. Could someone explain what this actually does? In English? Snape's dark eyes fixed on him. For once, there was no immediate sneer. Your mother's sacrifice created a protection based on love, specifically, her willingness to die for you. That protection was anchored through blood to your aunt, despite her inadequacies as a guardian. Wednesday picked up the explanation. The modified ritual will transfer that anchor from your aunt to you directly, eliminating the need for you to live with the Dursleys. It adds several layers of additional protection developed by the Adams family over centuries. The vengeance element, Snape continued, means that anyone who attempts to harm you will face magical consequences. The severity scales with the attacker's intent. So if Voldemort tries to kill me again? Harry asked. The backlash would be significant, Wednesday confirmed. The protection would no longer be limited to his inability to touch you. It would actively retaliate. Harry considered this. And this ritual, it's what the Ministry would call dark magic. By their simplistic definition, yes, Snape said with obvious disdain. They classify magic based on arbitrary distinctions rather than intent and effect. The Adams family has always rejected such classifications, Wednesday added. Magic simply is. Purpose and will determine its nature. Harry nodded slowly. So when can we do this ritual? Tonight, Wednesday answered. After my family arrives. Their presence will strengthen the magical matrix. Snape gathered several parchments. You'll need these for the Ministry filing. They document Potter's medical condition and connect it directly to the failure of the blood wards. He handed the stack to Wednesday. Madame Bones is the most reliable contact. She values evidence over politics. Thank you, Professor, Wednesday said. Your assistance is unexpectedly valuable. Snape's lip curled slightly, the closest he came to a smile. I have my reasons. His gaze flicked briefly to Harry. Lily would be displeased with how her son has been treated. Harry felt a strange twist in his chest at this rare mention of his mother from someone who had actually known her. Professor, he asked suddenly, what was she like? My mum. Snape went very still. For a moment, Harry thought he wouldn't answer. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, brilliant. Fiercely loyal. Terrifyingly competent when angered. A pause. You have her eyes. But her expression, her determination, that was evident yesterday, when you stood up to the headmaster. Harry swallowed hard against the unexpected lump in his throat. Thank you, he managed. Snape seemed to catch himself, his expression closing off again. The Ministry won't make this easy, Miss Adams. Dumbledore's influence runs deep, and many owe him political favors. The Adams family has its own influence, Wednesday replied. And we fight dirty when necessary. This earned her what appeared to be a look of approval from Snape. Good. Potter will need every advantage. After leaving Snape's office, Harry and Wednesday made their way to McGonagall's quarters, where the Floo connection to the Ministry had been arranged. Professor Snape is different today, Harry observed. The medical report changed his perspective, Wednesday explained. Seeing evidence of systematic abuse rather than the privileged upbringing he imagined triggered a re-evaluation. He knew my mum, Harry said. Really knew her, not just as a student. They were childhood friends, Wednesday confirmed. Before Hogwarts. Harry stopped walking. How do you know these things? The grimoire provides comprehensive information about individuals connected to endangered children, Wednesday repeated her earlier explanation. Additionally, my family maintains extensive intelligence networks in all magical communities. Is there anything you don't know? Harry asked, half joking. Wednesday considered this seriously. Your favorite color. Your aspirations beyond survival. Whether you prefer cats or dogs. Harry laughed, surprised by her literal answer. Blue. Not dying would be nice. And owls, actually. Wednesday nodded as if filing this information away, and they continued walking. McGonagall was waiting by her fireplace, dressed in formal robes with the Hogwarts crest. Good morning, Mr. Potter, Miss Adams. I'll be accompanying you to the Ministry as Mr. Potter's current supervisor. Thank you, Professor, Wednesday said. Your presence lends credibility. McGonagall's expression was grim. I've been reflecting on my failure to check on you, Mr. Potter. It's inexcusable. I expressed my concerns to Albus when he left you with those, she seemed to struggle for an appropriate word, people, but I accepted his assurances too readily. It's okay, Professor, Harry said automatically. It is not, McGonagall contradicted sharply. We failed you. I failed you. But I intend to make it right, starting today. Wednesday gave McGonagall an appraising look, seemingly satisfied with her sincerity. The Ministry of Magic was bustling with activity when they arrived. Wizards and witches hurried across the massive atrium, paper airplanes zoomed overhead carrying interdepartmental memos, and the fountain in the center depicting magical creatures in adoring poses around a wizard and witch sparkled ostentatiously. Propaganda, Wednesday commented, nodding toward the fountain. Depicting magical beings as subservient to wizards. Telling. McGonagall raised an eyebrow but didn't disagree as she led them toward the security desk. We have an appointment with Madame Bones in the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. The security wizard barely glanced up until he registered Harry's presence. His eyes widened, flicking automatically to the famous scar. Harry Potter. What an honor, we're late, Wednesday interrupted coldly. The staring is unnecessary and inappropriate. The man flushed, quickly processing their wands and issuing visitor badges. As they rode the elevator to level 2, Harry noticed several Ministry workers doing double takes at his presence. The wizarding world's fascination with your scar is both macabre and superficial, Wednesday observed. They venerate the symbol of your trauma while knowing nothing of its cost. Harry had never thought of it that way, but it made uncomfortable sense. Amelia Bones, head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, was a square-jawed witch with a monocle and an air of no-nonsense efficiency. She greeted them in a conference room rather than her office. Privacy wards are stronger here, she explained, activating them with a complex wand movement. Now, Professor McGonagall's message indicated this concerns Harry Potter's custody and possible legal irregularities. Correct, Wednesday said, placing a substantial file on the table. My name is Wednesday Addams, representing the Addams family's interests in this matter. We've documented systematic abuse of Mr. Potter by his Muggle relatives, placement contrary to his parents' explicit wishes in their will, and potentially deliberate obstruction of justice in the case of his godfather, Sirius Black. Madam Bones' eyebrows rose progressively higher as Wednesday outlined the case. She opened the file, examining the medical report first. These injuries, she said, her voice tight with controlled anger, they're consistent with long-term abuse? Yes, Wednesday confirmed. The pattern indicates systematic neglect and periodic physical mistreatment dating back to infancy. Madam Bones turned to Harry. Mr. Potter, I realize this is difficult, but I need to hear directly from you. Were you mistreated by your relatives? Harry hesitated, years of conditioning making it hard to speak openly about the Dursleys. It's okay to tell the truth, Wednesday said quietly. Silence protects abusers, not victims. Harry took a deep breath. I slept in the cupboard under the stairs until I got my Hogwarts letter. Then they moved me to my cousin's second bedroom because they were afraid wizards were watching the house. The words came faster now. I did all the chores, cooking, cleaning, gardening, from the time I was old enough to reach the stove on a stool. If I did accidental magic, I was punished, locked in the cupboard without food, sometimes for days. His voice grew quieter. Uncle Vernon would grab me, shake me. Sometimes hit me. Aunt Petunia swung a frying pan at my head once but missed. Dudley, my cousin, and his friends used to play Harry hunting. That's when they'd chase me and beat me up if they caught me. Madam Bones' expression had grown progressively more thunderous. And no one checked on you? No teachers, social workers, neighbors? Harry shook his head. The Dursleys told everyone I was a troublemaker, delinquent. No one questioned it. And in the wizarding world, Wednesday added, Dumbledore assured everyone Mr. Potter was safe and well cared for. Madam Bones set down the report with controlled precision. And the matter of the Potter's will? Wednesday produced another document. Sealed by Albus Dumbledore in his capacity as Chief Warlock, November 1, 1981. The original copy is in the Ministry archives, but this is a Gringotts duplicate which we accessed yesterday. Madam Bones examined the will, her expression darkening further. This explicitly excludes Petunia Dursley as a potential guardian. And names Sirius Black as the primary guardian, with others listed in succession. She looked up sharply. Black betrayed the Potters. He was their secret keeper. Was he? Wednesday asked. The will includes a magical certification that Black took an unbreakable godfather's vow to protect Harry Potter. Breaking that vow by betraying the Potters would have resulted in his immediate death. McGonagall gasped. That's true. Sirius took the vow, I witnessed it myself after Harry's birth. If he had truly betrayed James and Lily, he would be dead, not in Azkaban, Wednesday finished. Madam Bones set the will down carefully. Are you suggesting that Sirius Black is innocent of the crimes for which he was imprisoned? I'm stating that he never received a trial, which would have included Veritaserum testimony that would have exonerated him, Wednesday replied. The transcript record is conspicuously empty. Madam Bones was silent for a long moment, visibly processing this information. These are extremely serious allegations, Miss Addams. You're effectively accusing Albus Dumbledore of illegal imprisonment of the Potter heir's rightful guardian, deliberate contravention of a legal will, and placement of a magical child in an abusive environment. Yes, Wednesday confirmed without hesitation. Madam Bones removed her monocle, pinching the bridge of her nose. Merlin's beard. This is unprecedented. She replaced the monocle and fixed Wednesday with a piercing stare. What exactly are you requesting from the DMLE? 3 things, Wednesday stated. First, an emergency custody hearing for Mr. Potter, removing him permanently from both the Dursleys and Dumbledore's magical guardianship. Second, an immediate review of Sirius Black's case, including provision for Veritaserum questioning. Third, an investigation into the sealing of the Potter will against explicit instructions. McGonagall cleared her throat. If I may, Amelia, Madam Bones, I believe these requests are both reasonable and urgent. Having seen the evidence myself, I cannot in good conscience allow Mr. Potter to return to that environment. Madam Bones nodded slowly. I agree, but the political ramifications. She trailed off, then seemed to steel herself. No. The law must apply equally, even to Albus Dumbledore. Very well, Miss Adams. I'll issue the orders immediately. She stood. The custody hearing will be scheduled for tomorrow morning. Given the high-profile nature of the case, it will be conducted before the full Wizengamot. As expected, Wednesday said. My family will be present to support Mr. Potter's case. The Adams family, Madam Bones repeated, recognition dawning in her eyes. I should have made the connection earlier. Your family's reputation precedes you, Miss Adams. Most reputations are at least partially fictional, Wednesday replied evenly. Indeed. Madam Bones gathered the documents. I'll have copies made for the official record. Mr. Potter, you'll need to be available for questioning tomorrow. Harry nodded. I'll tell the truth about everything. That's all we ask, Madam Bones said, her expression softening slightly. For what it's worth, Mr. Potter, I knew your parents. They would be appalled at what's been done to you in the name of protection. As they left the DMLE offices, McGonagall turned to Wednesday. That went better than expected. Amelia Bones is known for her fairness, but she's also politically cautious. I didn't anticipate such immediate action. The evidence is compelling, Wednesday replied. And the Adams name carries certain implications that encourage efficiency. Harry looked between them. What does that mean? McGonagall's lips thinned. The Adams family has a reputation for handling matters themselves if proper channels fail. It's generally wise to ensure proper channels work when they're involved. We have a family motto, Wednesday explained. Sic gorgiamus allos subjectados nunc. We gladly feast on those who would subdue us. Charming, McGonagall murmured. Their next stop was Gringotts. As they approached the massive white building, Harry noticed goblins at the entrance watching Wednesday with unusual intensity. One actually inclined his head slightly as they passed. Inside, instead of queuing at the counters, Wednesday approached a goblin guard directly. Vault business for the Potter heir. Financial audit and will execution review. Senior account manager required. The goblin examined her with narrowed eyes. Identification. Wednesday extended her hand, palm up. A small silver blade appeared between her fingers. Without hesitation, she drew it across her palm, allowing several drops of blood to fall onto the marble floor. Adams, the goblin acknowledged, watching as her wound sealed instantly. Follow me. As they were led down a corridor Harry had never seen on his previous visit, he whispered, what was that about? Goblins respect blood verification, Wednesday explained. And the Adams family has maintained alliance with the Goblin Nation since the 1600s. Your hand, doesn't it hurt? Harry asked, concerned. Wednesday looked at him as if the question were strange. Pain is irrelevant compared to efficiency. The goblin led them to an ornate door bearing the Potter crest, a shield with a griffin rampant and 3 lilies. Inside, an ancient-looking goblin waited behind a massive desk covered with ledgers and scrolls. Grip Hook, the goblin addressed Harry. You remember me? Harry was startled. Yes, you took me to my vault last year. The goblin looked pleased. Most wizards don't bother distinguishing between goblins. I've been assigned as your temporary account manager until matters are resolved. Thank you for seeing us, Wednesday said formally. We require a full accounting of the Potter estate and an explanation for the failure to execute the Potter will. Griphook's expression turned grim. Gringotts has been attempting to contact Mr. Potter regarding these matters since his 11th birthday. Our owls were consistently redirected. By whom? McGonagall asked sharply. Mail redirection wards, Griphook explained. Powerful ones, anchored to Mr. Potter himself. All correspondence except Hogwarts letters was affected. Wednesday's eyes narrowed. That's a serious violation of magical autonomy. Who placed these wards? The magical signature matches Albus Dumbledore, Griphook replied. We've documented the interference but lacked authority to override it without Mr. Potter's direct request. Harry felt a cold wave of anger. So I never got any mail? From anyone? Nothing except what passed through Hogwarts wards directly, Griphook confirmed. Hundreds of letters, packages, and official notifications have accumulated in our holding vaults. Including my bank statements, Harry guessed. So I wouldn't know what was happening with my money. Precisely, Griphook nodded. Now, regarding the Potter estate. He opened a massive ledger. There are 3 vaults. The trust vault you've accessed, which contains approximately 50,000 galleons for your education. The Potter family vault, containing approximately 2.3 million galleons plus heirlooms, books, and magical artifacts. And the investment vault, which manages the Potter portfolio worth approximately 12 million galleons. Harry's jaw dropped. I'm rich. Extremely wealthy, Griphook corrected. The Potters are one of Britain's oldest magical families. However, there have been some concerning transactions over the past decade. He turned the ledger to show them a page of entries. Monthly withdrawals of 500 galleons to the Dursley account for your maintenance, which based on the medical report, was clearly misappropriated. Annual withdrawals of 10,000 galleons to a Potter Guardian Fund controlled by Albus Dumbledore. And quarterly withdrawals of 5,000 galleons to something called the Order of the Phoenix Reserve. McGonagall looked shocked. The order was disbanded after the war. Why would Albus still be withdrawing funds for it? More importantly, Wednesday interjected, who authorized these withdrawals? Mr. Potter certainly didn't. Albus Dumbledore, acting as magical guardian, Griphook replied with obvious distaste. While technically legal, these actions violate the spirit of guardianship. The amounts are excessive, and there's no accounting for how the funds were used. How much has been taken in total? Harry asked quietly. Griphook consulted another page. Approximately 258,000 galleons over 10 years. Harry felt sick. That's more than £1 million. Can these withdrawals be challenged? Wednesday asked. With the custody hearing pending, yes, Griphook confirmed. We can freeze all accounts immediately and begin recovery proceedings. Do it, Harry said firmly. And I want to see my parents' will. The complete version. Griphook produced a sealed parchment. This is the original filed with Gringotts. It was never properly executed due to ministry interference. Harry broke the seal with trembling fingers. As he read, his expression cycled through grief, anger, and finally, determination. They planned everything, he said softly. Funds for my education, guidelines for my upbringing, even a list of memories they stored for me to view when I was older. He looked up. Where are these memories? In your family vault, Griphook replied. Along with letters they wrote to you. Harry took a deep breath, fighting back tears. Can I see them today? Of course, Griphook said. But first, there's another matter we should address. The will includes a provision for magical adoption if none of the named guardians were available. Specifically, it allows the Potter family magic to select a suitable guardian based on compatibility and intent. I've never heard of such magic, McGonagall said, frowning. It's ancient family magic, Wednesday explained. The Adams use similar protections. The family magic itself chooses who can best nurture its heir. This provision was specifically ignored when Dumbledore sealed the will, Griphook confirmed. But it can be activated now, with Mr. Potter's consent. Harry hesitated. What exactly would happen? You would place 3 drops of blood on the family crest, Griphook explained. The Potter family magic would then evaluate potential guardians based on magical compatibility, intent toward you, and ability to protect you. It might select someone from the original list, or someone new entirely. It wouldn't choose the Dursleys, would it? Harry asked anxiously. Impossible, Wednesday stated flatly. Family magic recognizes abuse as antithetical to its purpose. Harry considered this, then nodded decisively. Let's do it. Griphook produced a small silver basin embossed with the Potter crest. 3 drops, directly in the center. Harry pricked his finger with the provided pin, allowing 3 drops of blood to fall into the basin. The blood didn't pool as expected, instead, it was absorbed instantly into the metal, which began to glow with a warm golden light. It's working, Griphook observed. The family magic is active again after being suppressed for years. The glow intensified, then shot upward in a beam of golden light that dissipated into the ceiling. What happened? Harry asked. Did it choose someone? The magic has made its selection, Griphook confirmed. The chosen guardian will be magically notified. Their identity will be revealed at tomorrow's custody hearing. You mean we don't know who it is? Harry asked, alarmed. The Potter magic knows, Wednesday said. That's what matters. Family magic doesn't make mistakes. McGonagall looked concerned. That's all well and good, but practically speaking, we need to prepare for the hearing. It would help to know who this mysterious guardian might be. Patience, Professor, Wednesday advised. Some magic works in its own time. After completing their business at Gringotts, including a brief but emotional visit to the Potter family vault where Harry retrieved several letters and memory vials from his parents, they returned to Hogwarts. The afternoon was spent preparing for the custody hearing, with Wednesday methodically organizing evidence and testimony. The hearing will be hostile, she warned Harry as they worked. Dumbledore's supporters will attempt to portray him as a well-meaning guardian whose actions, while perhaps misguided, were ultimately protective. What about the money? Harry asked. He took hundreds of thousands of galleons from my vaults. Financial impropriety is actually our strongest legal argument, Wednesday confirmed. The wizarding world might excuse child endangerment as necessary for the greater good, but theft from an ancient and noble house? That's unforgivable. Harry snorted. Their priorities are mental. Most society's values are arbitrary and inconsistent, Wednesday agreed. The Addams family simply accepts this and exploits the inconsistencies when necessary. Their work was interrupted by Professor McGonagall, who appeared looking distinctly harried. Miss Addams, your family has arrived. Already? Wednesday checked her watch. They're early. Yes, well, they've made quite an impression, McGonagall said with remarkable understatement. They're in the entrance hall. Professor Dumbledore is attempting to welcome them. Wednesday stood immediately. We should intervene. My father tends to challenge authority figures to duels when bored. They hurried down to the entrance hall, where one of the strangest scenes Harry had ever witnessed was unfolding. A tall, handsome man with slick back hair and a pencil mustache was enthusiastically shaking Dumbledore's hand while speaking rapid Spanish. Beside him, a willowy woman with skin as pale as Wednesday's and a floor-length black dress observed with serene amusement. A stocky boy about Harry's age appeared to be examining the suits of armor with alarming interest, while an ancient woman in a tattered shawl was sniffing suspiciously at the pumpkin juice a house elf had offered. Poison, the old woman declared in a croaking voice. Amateurish attempt. No depth, no creativity. Family, Wednesday called, her voice carrying across the hall. You're early. Wednesday, darling. The pale woman glided forward, embracing her daughter with elegant grace. We couldn't wait. The private locomotive was tedious, and your father kept threatening to jump out to duel the conductor. He questioned my cigar, the mustached man explained indignantly. As if a Cuban would affect his precious schedule. "Mother, father, this is Harry Potter," Wednesday introduced. "Harry, my parents, Morticia and Gomez Adams. My brother Pugsley, and my grandmother, whom we call Grandmama." "A pleasure to meet you, young man," Morticia said, extending a slender hand. "Your situation has quite captured Wednesday's interest. She rarely involves herself so directly in rescue cases." Harry shook her cold hand. "Thank you for coming." "Nonsense," Gomez declared, pumping Harry's hand enthusiastically. "The Addams family has championed magical children for centuries. Your case is especially egregious: falsified guardianship, financial exploitation, systematic endangerment. Magnificent grounds for legal warfare." "Father enjoys litigation," Wednesday explained to Harry's bemused expression. "It's my third favorite blood sport," Gomez confirmed cheerfully. Pugsley approached, eyeing Harry curiously. "Is it true you survived a killing curse? Does your scar hurt when you touch it? Can I see?" "Pugsley," Morticia chided gently. "We discussed this. Mr. Potter's trauma is not for our entertainment." "Sorry," Pugsley muttered. "But if you ever want to compare scars." He rolled up his sleeve to reveal what looked suspiciously like acid burns. "Chemistry experiment," he explained proudly. Wednesday helped. Grandmama shuffled forward, peering at Harry through rheumy eyes. "Thin," she pronounced. "Underfed. Magical binding, too. Come to my cauldron later, boy. I'll fix you up proper. Got potions that'd make these British wizards faint dead away." "That won't be necessary, Grandmama," Wednesday interjected. "We're addressing Harry's health through official channels first." "Bah! Official channels," Grandmama scoffed. "In my day, we just slipped the potions in their soup and watched the results." Dumbledore, who had been observing this family reunion with increasing alarm, finally spoke. "While Hogwarts is of course delighted to welcome the Addams family, I must express concern about the, unorthodox approach being taken to Harry's situation." Gomez rounded on him instantly. "Unorthodox? Compared to what, Dumbledore? Leaving a magical child with abusive muggles? Sealing his parents' will illegally? Embezzling from his family vaults? Those are serious allegations that have yet to be proven," Dumbledore began. "They will be proven," Morticia interrupted, her voice soft but carrying a chill that silenced the headmaster instantly. "The Addams family has extensive experience with magical justice. We find conventional courts are often inefficient. But we'll work within your system. For now." The threat implicit in her last words hung in the air. "The hearing is tomorrow," Wednesday said, breaking the tension. "Tonight, we perform the protection ritual to transfer the blood wards from the Dursleys to Harry directly." "Excellent!" Gomez exclaimed. "Blood magic. My favorite. After litigation and fencing, of course." "Professor Snape has modified the ritual to incorporate elements from Lily Potter's original sacrifice," Wednesday explained. "His expertise has been invaluable." Morticia's eyebrows rose fractionally. "Severus Snape. Interesting. His work on protective potion matrices is quite innovative, if traditionally limited by British magical restrictions." "Yeah, he's helping," Harry confirmed, still slightly bewildered by this strange family. "He's been different. Less, hostile," Wednesday suggested. "Yeah, that." Dumbledore appeared increasingly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion elsewhere. The entrance hall is hardly private." "An excellent suggestion," Morticia agreed. "We'd like to see where Harry will be staying, to ensure it meets Addams' standards of protection." McGonagall stepped forward. "I've arranged guest quarters in the East Wing for your family, Mrs. Addams. Connected to Harry and Wednesday's rooms." "Perfect," Morticia smiled, revealing teeth that seemed just slightly too sharp. "Lead the way, Professor. I'm particularly interested in the castle's defensive enchantments. They seem adequate, but I sense gaps in the northwestern quadrant." McGonagall blinked in surprise. "That's remarkably perceptive. We've been meaning to reinforce those wards for some time. The Addams family has always had an affinity for defensive magic," Morticia explained as they began walking. "A necessity when one practices traditions that others find objectionable." "Speaking of objectionable practices," Gomez said cheerfully, "we brought the necessary components for tonight's ritual. Black candles from the Carpathian Mountains, dragon heartstrings soaked in basilisk venom, powdered thestral bone, and of course, the Addams family ceremonial athame." He patted a suspiciously shaped bundle under his arm. Dumbledore paled visibly. "Those components are classified as dark artifacts under Ministry regulations. Only in Britain," Wednesday pointed out. "International magical law recognizes cultural variations in magical practice. The Treaty of Salem, which Britain signed, explicitly protects traditional family magic from local restrictions." "She's right, you know," McGonagall murmured to Dumbledore. "Legally, they're within their rights to perform traditional family rituals. The law is a fascinating playground, isn't it?" Gomez beamed. "So many delightful technicalities to exploit." As they made their way to the East Wing, Harry found himself walking alongside Pugsley, who kept casting curious glances at his scar. "Sorry about staring," Pugsley said eventually. "It's just, we don't get many killing curse survivors in America. Most people just, die." "It's fine," Harry assured him. "I'm used to it." "Wednesday says you live with muggles who hate magic," Pugsley continued. "We had relatives like that back in the 1700s. Great-great-great-grandfather Alphonse turned them into toads." "That's one solution," Harry said uncertainly. Pugsley nodded sagely. "Family legend says they were happier as toads. Less judgmental, more flies to eat. Win-win, really." Harry couldn't help laughing. The Addams family was bizarre, unsettling, and strangely endearing all at once. Once settled in their quarters, the Addams family immediately began preparations for the evening's ritual. Grandmama took over a corner of the common room, setting up what appeared to be a portable brewing station complete with a cauldron that should have been too large to transport. Gomez and Morticia conferred with Wednesday over the ritual diagrams, while Pugsley amused himself by teaching Thing, who had emerged from Wednesday's bag, to play chess. Shortly before dinner, Professor Snape arrived with additional components for the ritual. "Ah, Severus Snape." Gomez greeted him enthusiastically. "Your reputation precedes you. That paper on incorporating vengeance elements into protective potions was revolutionary." Snape actually looked taken aback by the warm reception. "You're familiar with my research?" "The Addams family maintains an extensive library on all forms of magical protection," Morticia explained, gliding forward to examine the vials Snape had brought. "Your work bridges several traditions we find particularly valuable. This is well prepared," she added, holding a vial of iridescent liquid to the light. "Perfect viscosity." For perhaps the first time in Harry's experience, Snape appeared almost flustered by the praise. "The base incorporates elements from Lily Potter's original Sacrifice," he explained. "I've isolated the magical signature from a preserved sample." "Ingenious," Morticia murmured. "The familial connection will strengthen the transference significantly." "You knew her well?" Something flickered across Snape's face, pain, perhaps. "Yes," he said simply. "Good," Gomez declared. "Personal connection adds power to the ritual. Now, we'll need to prepare Potter for his role. First time participating in blood magic, I assume?" Harry nodded nervously. "Nothing to worry about," Gomez assured him. "Just a few drops from the ceremonial athame, some ancient incantations, possibly a brief sensation of your soul being temporarily untethered from your body, all perfectly normal." "Father," Wednesday interjected, "you're alarming him unnecessarily. The ritual is safe, Harry. You'll feel the magic working, but there's no danger. Unless you panic during the soul-floating part," Pugsley added helpfully. "Then your spirit could get lost between dimensions. But that hardly ever happens." "Pugsley, darling, don't tease," Morticia chided gently. "Mr. Potter, the ritual is indeed safe. The Addams family has performed it countless times to protect magical children from those who would harm them." Harry appreciated her reassurance, though the casual mention of souls floating between dimensions was less than comforting. Dinner was a strange affair. The Addams family joined the staff at the high table, where Gomez regaled the increasingly horrified professors with tales of Addams family history. Morticia engaged Professor Sprout in a detailed discussion of carnivorous plants, while Grandmama scrutinized every dish with suspicion before declaring the British cuisine blandly inoffensive. Pugsley, seated beside Harry, kept pointing out architectural features of the Great Hall that would make excellent explosion sites. "The acoustics in here are perfect for a really good boom," he explained enthusiastically. "Plus, all that magic in the ceiling would amplify the effect." "Please don't blow up my school," Harry requested, though he couldn't help grinning at Pugsley's enthusiasm. "Just hypothesizing," Pugsley assured him. "Wednesday made me promise, no explosions until after your custody is settled." After dinner, they gathered in a secluded courtyard near the east wing. The sky above was clear, stars shining brilliantly in the summer night. Snape arrived carrying additional components, his expression neutral but his movements betraying tension. "The ritual must be performed precisely," he instructed, laying out vials in a specific order. "Any deviation could compromise the protection." "Naturally," Morticia agreed, arranging black candles in a complex pattern around a central point. "Gomez, the athame." Gomez unwrapped the bundle he'd been carrying, revealing an ancient-looking silver dagger with a hilt carved from some dark material Harry couldn't identify. Runes were etched along the blade, glowing faintly in the dim light. "Family heirloom," Gomez explained, handling the blade with unusual reverence. "Used in protection rituals since the 1500s. Carries the accumulated power of generations of Addams magic." Wednesday was carefully drawing a complex diagram on the courtyard stones using what appeared to be silver powder. "Harry, you'll stand here, in the center," she instructed. "When the ritual begins, focus on your mother's protection, the feeling of safety, of being shielded." "I don't know what that feels like," Harry admitted quietly. "I don't remember her." An unexpected hand landed on his shoulder, Snape's. "Her protection feels warm," the professor said, his voice low and uncharacteristically gentle. "Like sunlight after a long winter. It's been with you always, Potter, whether you recognized it or not." Harry stared at him in shock. This glimpse of Snape's knowledge of his mother, of his ability to describe her magic, was disorienting. "Thank you, Professor," he managed. Snape nodded curtly, removing his hand as if suddenly aware of the uncharacteristic gesture. "Places, everyone," Morticia directed. "Wednesday, you'll anchor the eastern point. Severus, the north. Gomez, west. I'll take south. Grandmama will monitor the potion integration." "What about me?" Pugsley asked eagerly. "You will ensure we're not interrupted," Wednesday told him firmly. "Keep watch at the courtyard entrance." Pugsley looked disappointed but took up his position without argument. The ritual began with Morticia lighting the black candles with a gesture of her hand, wandless magic that made McGonagall, who was observing from a respectful distance, gasp softly. "Blood of the protected," Gomez intoned, approaching Harry with the ceremonial knife. "Freely given, freely received." Harry extended his palm. The blade was sharp enough that he barely felt it as Gomez drew it across his skin, collecting several drops of blood in a small silver bowl. "Blood of the protector," Gomez continued, passing the knife to Snape, who unhesitatingly cut his own palm, adding his blood to Harry's. This was repeated with each Addams family member, creating a mixture that Grandmama then added to her bubbling cauldron. The air in the courtyard grew heavy with magic, pulsing with each word of the ancient incantation that Wednesday and Morticia now began to chant. The language was like nothing Harry had heard before, older than Latin, with sounds that seemed to resonate directly with his magical core. As the chanting intensified, the silver diagram beneath Harry's feet began to glow. He felt a strange sensation, as if the magic that had always been part of him was rising to the surface of his skin, becoming visible. Looking down, he saw a faint golden light emanating from his chest, particularly strong over his heart. Mother's protection, Snape confirmed, his own voice joining the chant. Recognize our intent. Transfer your anchor. Strengthen your shield. The golden light pulsed in response to Snape's words. Harry felt a sudden warmth spreading through him, the sensation Snape had described, like sunlight after winter. With it came a fleeting impression of gentle hands, a woman's soft laugh, a whispered, "I love you." Tears sprang to his eyes. "Mom," he whispered. The golden light expanded suddenly, enveloping him completely before shooting outward in all directions, connecting with each ritual participant in a brilliant web of magic. Where it touched the Addams family members, it took on a silvery blue tinge. Where it connected with Snape, it deepened to a rich emerald green. "The protections are merging," Wednesday observed, her voice echoing strangely through the magic. Potter family magic, Addams family magic, and Severus Snape's personal oath. Oath? Harry managed to ask through the overwhelming sensations. "To protect you," Snape replied, his voice strained with effort. "Always." The web of light contracted suddenly, drawing back into Harry's body with such force that he gasped. For one terrifying moment, it felt as though his soul was indeed floating free of his physical form. He could see the courtyard from above, could see the magic swirling around his body like a multicolored storm. Then, with a sensation like being snapped back by an enormous elastic band, he was firmly back in his body. The golden light faded, absorbed into his skin, leaving behind a feeling of security unlike anything he'd ever experienced. "It is done," Morticia announced, her voice carrying a note of satisfaction. "The protection is transferred and strengthened. The blood connection to Petunia Dursley is severed completely." Harry felt dizzy but elated. Did it work? Am I safe from Voldemort now? More than safe, Gomez declared, clapping him on the shoulder. Any attempt to harm you magically will trigger the Addams vengeance component. Most unpleasant for the attacker. The protection is also mobile, Wednesday explained. Unlike the Dursley-anchored wards, which required your presence in their home, this protection remains with you wherever you go. Snape was examining Harry with an intense gaze. The magical signature is significantly stronger than before. "Potter, do you feel any difference in your access to your core?" Harry considered this, reaching mentally for his magic as he did when casting spells. To his surprise, it responded immediately and powerfully, surging through him with far greater ease than he was accustomed to. "It feels easier," he said, struggling to articulate the sensation. "Like something was blocking it before that isn't anymore." The original protection had limitations, Wednesday confirmed. It was designed to keep you alive, not to allow you to thrive magically. This modified version removes those constraints. Speaking of thriving, Grandmama interrupted, shuffling forward with a smoking goblet. "Drink this, boy. Restore what those muggles took from you." Harry eyed the bubbling, faintly glowing potion with understandable apprehension. "It's perfectly safe," Wednesday assured him. Grandmama's nutritional restoration potion is one of her specialties. It accelerates physical recovery from malnutrition and neglect. Tastes like troll sweat, works like a charm, Grandmama cackled. "How do you know what troll sweat tastes like?" Harry couldn't help asking. "Boy, at my age, there's precious little I haven't tasted," Grandmama replied with a wink that Harry found deeply disturbing. Under the watchful eyes of the entire group, Harry braced himself and drank the potion in 3 large gulps. It tasted vile, like rotten eggs mixed with burnt toast and something metallically tangy, but the effect was immediate and remarkable. Warmth spread through his body, focusing particularly on areas he knew had been damaged: the poorly healed fracture in his wrist from when Dudley had pushed him down the stairs, the chronically aching knee from years of Harry hunting, the perpetual hollow feeling in his stomach that never quite disappeared even at Hogwarts. "Wow," he breathed as the sensation settled into a general feeling of well-being. "You'll need 2 more doses," Grandmama instructed. "One tomorrow morning, one tomorrow night. Then weekly for a month. You'll grow proper, not this stunted nonsense." "Thank you," Harry said sincerely. As the ritual participants began cleaning up the materials, McGonagall approached Harry. "How do you feel, Mr. Potter?" "Better than I ever have," Harry replied honestly. "It's like I didn't know how much everything hurt until it stopped hurting." McGonagall's expression softened. "I am so very sorry, Harry. We should have noticed. I should have noticed." "It's okay, Professor," Harry began automatically. "It's not," McGonagall interrupted firmly. "But we will make it right. Starting with tomorrow's hearing." The group made their way back to their quarters, where Morticia insisted on examining Harry to ensure the ritual had taken properly. "The protection is beautifully integrated," she pronounced, her slender fingers making complicated gestures around his head and chest. "Lily Potter's original magic forms the foundation, with the Adam's Vengeance component as the active defense, and Severus's Oath providing the sustaining element. Quite elegant." Snape, who had accompanied them to complete the ritual documentation, nodded in agreement. "The magical signature is stable. Potter should experience enhanced magical access as the bindings from the original protection dissolve completely." "Bindings?" Harry asked. "My magic was bound." "Not deliberately," Snape explained. "But the original protection prioritized keeping you alive over magical development. It consumed a portion of your core to maintain the wards. Which explains your occasional difficulty with basic spells despite your obvious raw power," Wednesday added. "The inconsistency in your casting wasn't your fault, it was a side effect of the protection draining your resources." Harry felt a surge of relief. He'd always wondered why magic sometimes came so naturally and other times felt impossible to grasp. "Tomorrow will be challenging," Morticia said, returning to the practical matter at hand. "The Wizengamot hearing will likely be hostile. Dumbledore has many supporters who will resist any challenge to his authority." "Let them resist," Gomez declared enthusiastically. "Nothing like a good legal battle to get the blood flowing. I've brought 17 precedent cases, 12 international statutes, and a fascinating Bavarian ruling from 1732 regarding magical guardianship during wartime conditions. We have the evidence and the law on our side," Wednesday stated confidently. "And now, with the protection ritual completed, Dumbledore's primary argument for returning Harry to the Dursleys is invalidated. There's also the matter of the Potter family magic selecting a guardian," McGonagall reminded them. "That will be revealed during the hearing, correct?" "Yes," Wednesday confirmed. "The magic will manifest when formally questioned by the Wizengamot." Harry, exhausted from the ritual but feeling better physically than he could ever remember, finally excused himself to bed. As he lay staring at the ceiling, processing the whirlwind events of the past 2 days, a soft knock came at his door. "Come in," he called. Wednesday entered, looking as composed as ever despite the late hour and magical exertion. "You should sleep," she said. "Tomorrow will require all your focus." "I know," Harry agreed. It's a lot to take in. 2 days ago I was weeding Aunt Petunia's garden, and now I've got this whole family of strange but brilliant people fighting for me. Professor Snape is being almost nice, and I might never have to see the Dursleys again. Change often occurs suddenly after long periods of stasis, Wednesday observed. Like an avalanche after years of snow accumulation. She hesitated, then added, "The Addams family protects its own, Harry. Once we take up a cause, we don't abandon it." "Am I one of yours now?" Harry asked, surprised by how much he wanted the answer to be yes. Wednesday considered this with characteristic seriousness. The ritual created a magical connection. By Adam's family standards, that constitutes a form of kinship. She paused. Does that concern you? Harry shook his head quickly. No. It's nice, actually. I've never had a family before. Not really. Wednesday nodded once. Sleep, Harry. Tomorrow we fight. The Wizengamot chamber was imposing, a circular room with tiered seating rising from a central floor. Members in plum-colored robes filled the upper tiers, their expressions ranging from curiosity to open hostility as Harry entered with his unusual entourage. Gomez Adams looked entirely in his element, practically bouncing with excitement as he arranged stacks of documents on the defense table. Morticia stood beside him, her calm presence a stark contrast to her husband's energy. Wednesday positioned herself directly next to Harry, her expression challenging anyone who dared approach. On the prosecution table sat an elderly wizard Harry didn't recognize, flanked by several assistants frantically reviewing documents. Dumbledore was notably absent from the chief warlock's seat, having recused himself due to his involvement in the case. In his place sat an austere-looking witch with iron-gray hair and a monocle, Madame Augusta Longbottom, Harry realized with surprise. The gallery was packed with spectators, including several Hogwarts professors. Harry spotted McGonagall, Flitwick, and even Snape, whose presence seemed to surprise several Wizengamot members. Nervous? Wednesday asked quietly, noticing Harry's tension. A bit, he admitted. I've never done anything like this before. Follow our lead, she advised. Answer questions truthfully but concisely. Remember, we have facts on our side. Madame Longbottom struck a gavel, bringing the chamber to order. We convene today for an emergency custody hearing regarding Harry James Potter, she announced. This case has been brought before the full Wizengamot given its significance and the parties involved. Are all relevant participants present? The Addams family represents Harry Potter's interests, Gomez declared, stepping forward with a theatrical bow. Gomez Adams, International Magical Law Specialist, at your service. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Addams' reputation clearly preceded them. The ministry position will be represented by Bartholomew Crockford, Department of Child Welfare, Madame Longbottom acknowledged. Where is Albus Dumbledore? As Mr. Potter's current magical guardian, his presence was requested. Headmaster Dumbledore sent word that urgent ICW business prevents his attendance, Crockford replied smoothly. He has provided written testimony and designated me to represent his interests. Convenient, Wednesday murmured. Very well, Madame Longbottom continued. The petitioners may present their case. Gomez stepped forward, suddenly transforming from eccentric enthusiast to commanding legal presence. Honored members of the Wizengamot, we bring before you today evidence of a grave injustice perpetrated against Harry James Potter, the last heir of the noble house of Potter. He began methodically presenting the evidence they had gathered, the medical records documenting years of neglect and abuse, the financial records showing misappropriation of Potter funds, and finally, the sealed will that explicitly excluded the Dursleys as potential guardians. James and Lily Potter made their wishes crystal clear, Gomez declared, holding up the will. Under no circumstances was their son to be placed with Petunia Dursley. Yet Albus Dumbledore, acting unilaterally, sealed this will and placed Harry Potter exactly where his parents forbidden, with catastrophic consequences for the boy's well-being. Crockford rose in objection. The placement was necessary for Mr. Potter's protection. The blood wards established through his mother's sacrifice required his residence with blood relatives. A convenient justification, Morticia interjected smoothly, gliding forward. Yet one that fails to explain why no monitoring was established, why the explicit financial provisions of the will were ignored, and why Mr. Potter was kept ignorant of his heritage, his family's wealth, and even the most basic facts about his parents' deaths. The questioning continued for over an hour, with Harry eventually called to testify about his life with the Dursleys. Speaking publicly about the cupboard, the hunger, the neglect, and the constant belittling was difficult, but Wednesday's steady presence beside him gave him strength. And no one from the magical world ever checked on you? Madame Bones asked from her seat among the Wizengamot members. No, ma'am, Harry confirmed. The first wizard I ever met was Hagrid, when he delivered my Hogwarts letter. After the Dursleys tried to prevent him from receiving it, Wednesday added. They went to extraordinary lengths to keep Mr. Potter from learning about magic, fleeing to a remote island to escape the letters, for instance. This revelation caused another wave of murmurs through the chamber. We will now hear testimony regarding Mr. Potter's first year at Hogwarts, Madame Longbottom announced, specifically addressing allegations of continued endangerment under Headmaster Dumbledore's supervision. To Harry's surprise, Professor McGonagall was called first. She spoke candidly about her initial objections to Harry's placement with the Dursleys, her regret at not checking on him subsequently, and her concerns about his safety during his first year at Hogwarts. The incident with the troll at Halloween was deeply troubling, she testified. As was the detention in the Forbidden Forest where Mr. Potter encountered a dark presence later identified as you-know-who. But most disturbing was the Philosopher's Stone situation, where 3 first-year students managed to bypass protection supposedly designed to deter a powerful dark wizard. Are you suggesting the protections were intentionally passable by children? Madame Bones asked sharply. McGonagall hesitated. I cannot speak to intent, but the outcome is difficult to explain otherwise. The challenges were precisely calibrated to the particular talents of Mr. Potter and his friends. Professor Snape's testimony was even more damning. The headmaster was explicitly warned that Professor Quirrell posed a potential threat, he stated in his precise manner. Yet no additional security measures were implemented. Furthermore, Potter was encouraged in risk-taking behavior through selective reward rather than appropriate discipline. You refer to the points awarded at the end of your feast. Madame Bones clarified. Precisely, Snape confirmed. 170 points for deliberate rule-breaking that nearly resulted in multiple student deaths. The message was clear, Potter would be rewarded for placing himself in danger. The prosecution attempted to counter with Dumbledore's written testimony, which emphasized the unique circumstances of Harry's situation and the necessity of certain risks given the prophesied connection between Harry and Voldemort. Prophecy? Harry whispered to Wednesday. What prophecy? Another secret kept from you, she replied quietly. We'll address it later. The proceedings took an unexpected turn when Crockford brought up the blood protection issue. The ritual performed last night at Hogwarts constitutes dangerous dark magic, he declared. Unsanctioned blood rituals are classified as restricted magic under Ministry decree. Objection. Gomez leapt to his feet. The ritual in question falls under protected cultural magic as defined by the Treaty of Salem, Article 7, Paragraph 12. Traditional family magic practiced for protective purposes shall remain exempt from local restrictions when performed for the benefit of a magical child. Mr. Adams is correct, Madame Longbottom ruled after consulting a legal text. The treaty takes precedence in this matter. Furthermore, Morticia added, rising gracefully, the ritual successfully transferred and strengthened the existing protection, rendering the argument for Mr. Potter's return to his abusive relatives entirely moot. This revelation clearly caught the prosecution off guard. Crockford conferred frantically with his assistants before responding. The ministry requires verification of this claim. Blood magic is notoriously unpredictable, I can confirm the ritual's success, came a new voice from the gallery. Severus Snape stood, his black robes making him look more like an executioner than a witness. As a certified potions master with specialization in protective magic, I personally assisted in and verified the ritual. The protection is not only intact but significantly enhanced. The Wizengamot members exchanged surprised glances. Snape's testimony carried particular weight given his known expertise, and his equally well-known lack of favoritism toward Harry. Very well, Madame Longbottom acknowledged. With the protection issue addressed, we must now consider the matter of appropriate guardianship for Mr. Potter. The prosecution has argued that despite certain oversights, Albus Dumbledore remains the most qualified magical guardian given the continuing threat from you-know-who supporters. If I may, Wednesday interjected, rising from her seat. The Potter family will states that in the absence of named guardians, the Potter family magic itself shall select a suitable guardian based on magical compatibility and intent. Family magic is not recognized as legally binding in guardianship cases, Crockford objected. Actually, it is, Gomez corrected, brandishing yet another legal document. The Ancient Houses Protection Act of 1346, never repealed, explicitly recognizes family magic as the ultimate authority in matters of heir protection when all named guardians are unavailable. Madame Longbottom studied the document, then nodded. Mr. Adams is correct. The law stands, despite its age. She turned to Harry. Mr. Potter, has the family magic been activated to select a guardian? Yes, ma'am, Harry confirmed. At Gringotts yesterday. Very well. The selection will manifest when formally called upon. Madame Longbottom raised her wand. By the authority of this court, I call upon the Potter family magic to reveal its chosen guardian for Harry James Potter. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft golden glow appeared around Harry, similar to what he had experienced during the ritual. The glow expanded outward, forming a searching tendril that moved across the chamber like a living thing. The assembly watched in hushed anticipation as the magic paused briefly near several people, hovering momentarily near Snape, then McGonagall, then, surprisingly, Madame Longbottom herself, before continuing its search. Then, to Harry's astonishment, the golden light divided into 3 separate tendrils, each moving with purpose toward different individuals, one to Sirius Black, represented in absentia by an empty chair with his name, one to Remus Lupin, who had been called as a witness but hadn't yet testified, and the third, most surprisingly, to Wednesday Adams. The 3 tendrils brightened simultaneously, then retracted back to Harry, where they formed a complex knot above his heart before being absorbed into his body. Silence fell over the chamber, broken only when Gomez let out a delighted laugh. A triumvirate guardianship. Magnificent. I haven't seen one of those since the Blackwood case of 1889. This is highly irregular, Crockford sputtered. Sirius Black is a convicted criminal. Remus Lupin is a registered werewolf. And Miss Adams is barely of age herself. The Potter magic has spoken, Morticia replied serenely. It has selected guardians who complement each other's strengths and compensate for individual limitations. Quite elegant, really. Madame Longbottom, looking slightly stunned, consulted briefly with the court scribe. The law is clear on this matter. Family magic, once invoked in accordance with a legitimate will, takes precedence over other considerations. However, she added, raising a hand to quiet the erupting conversations, there are practical matters to address. Sirius Black remains incarcerated. His selection by the Potter magic raises serious questions about his conviction that must be investigated separately. A motion to that effect has already been filed, Madame Bones confirmed from her seat. Mr. Black will receive a proper trial under Veritaserum within the week. Until that matter is resolved, Madame Longbottom continued, guardianship will be shared between Remus Lupin and Wednesday Adams, with the Adams family providing additional support given Mr. Lupin's monthly limitations. Remus Lupin stood, looking both stunned and deeply moved. I am honored by the Potter magic's choice, he said, his voice rough with emotion. James and Lily were family to me. I will do everything in my power to protect their son. Wednesday simply nodded, accepting the responsibility with characteristic seriousness. There remains the matter of Albus Dumbledore's actions regarding the Potter will and finances, Madame Bones reminded the court. These allegations require thorough investigation. A separate hearing will be scheduled to address those concerns, Madame Longbottom decided. For today, our focus is Mr. Potter's immediate welfare. After another hour of legal arguments and testimony, Madame Longbottom finally called for a vote. The result was closer than Harry had expected. Dumbledore's influence ran deep, but ultimately decisive. Harry would not return to the Dursleys, Dumbledore would no longer serve as his magical guardian, and the triumvirate guardianship would be provisionally approved pending Sirius Black's trial. As the Wisengamot members filed out, Harry found himself surrounded by his new guardians and the Addams family. "We won!" Pugsley exclaimed, having watched the proceedings with remarkable patience for an explosives enthusiast. "Of course we won," Wednesday replied matter-of-factly. "The evidence was overwhelming." Remus Lupin approached Harry tentatively. "Harry, he seemed at a loss for words. "I should have been there for you. All these years, I thought Dumbledore was ensuring your welfare. If I had known." "It's not your fault," Harry assured him, studying this friend of his parents with interest. Lupin looked prematurely aged, his light brown hair streaked with grey, his robes shabby but meticulously clean. "Why didn't you contact me before?" "Dumbledore insisted the blood protection required complete separation from the magical world," Lupin explained, pain evident in his voice. "And my condition, there are strict laws about werewolves interacting with children." "Barbaric legislation," Morticia commented. "In America, lycanthropy is classified as a magical condition, not a restriction on civil rights." "The important thing," Gomez declared, clapping both Harry and Lupin on the shoulders, "is that we've righted a long-standing wrong. The Potter heir is free from manipulative control. Justice prevails. And we're just getting started," Wednesday added with quiet intensity. "Sirius Black's trial will expose more of Dumbledore's machinations. The financial investigation will reveal where those misappropriated funds went. And then there's the matter of the prophecy Dumbledore referenced." Harry nodded, feeling simultaneously exhausted and exhilarated. "What happens now? Where will I live?" "The Addams family estate in Scotland would be safest initially," Morticia suggested. "The protection ritual we performed will function anywhere, but our home has additional security measures that would benefit everyone." She glanced meaningfully at Lupin, implying the estate could safely accommodate a transformed werewolf. "I have a small cottage," Lupin offered. "But it's hardly suitable for nonsense," Gomez interrupted. "You'll stay with us as well. The East Wing has 12 bedrooms going completely unused. Plus, our groundskeeper Lurch would appreciate another adult to converse with. His vocabulary is limited to groans, but he's quite expressive once you learn the nuances." Harry couldn't help laughing at the bemused expression on Lupin's face. The Addams family took some getting used to, but their absolute certainty and unwavering support were exactly what he needed right now. "Before we leave," Wednesday said, "there's one more matter to address." She turned to where Dumbledore had finally appeared, having entered quietly during the final vote. "Headmaster. You have something that belongs to Harry. His parents' personal effects." Dumbledore looked genuinely sad as he approached their group. "Harry, my boy, I hope you understand that everything I've done was for the greater good," Wednesday finished coldly. "A philosophy that consistently sacrifices individual well-being for theoretical collective benefit. We're not interested in justifications, only the return of Potter family property." Dumbledore sighed heavily. "Of course. James' invisibility cloak has already been returned to Harry. The remaining items from Godric's Hollow are in my office at Hogwarts. I'll have them delivered to wherever Harry will be staying. We'll collect them personally," Morticia stated, her tone brooking no argument. "To ensure nothing is overlooked." Dumbledore nodded, looking every one of his considerable years. "Harry, despite what you may now believe, I have always cared for your welfare. Perhaps I made mistakes in how I sought to protect you, perhaps." Harry interrupted, surprising himself with his boldness. "You left me with people who hated me. You kept me from knowing anything about my parents or my heritage. You let me face Voldemort with no preparation or warning." He shook his head. "I don't think you're evil, Professor. But I don't think you see people as real when they're part of your plans. We're just pieces on a chessboard to you." Dumbledore looked stricken. "Harry, the boy has spoken his truth," Grandmama interrupted, shuffling forward with surprising speed. "You do well to listen instead of justifying. Wisdom comes from acknowledging mistakes, not explaining them away." For once, the great Albus Dumbledore seemed at a loss for words. As they left the ministry, Harry walking between Wednesday and Lupin with the rest of the Addams family creating an imposing entourage, he felt something he hadn't experienced before, the absolute certainty that he belonged somewhere. That he was protected not because of a prophecy or his status as the boy who lived, but simply because these people had decided he mattered. "Thank you," he said suddenly, stopping in the middle of the atrium. "All of you. For fighting for me." "No thanks necessary," Wednesday replied in her matter-of-fact way. "Justice is its own reward." What she means, Lupin translated with a small smile, is that we're happy to do it. Your parents would have done the same for any of us. Exactly. Gomez declared. Now, on to Phase 2, Sirius Black's trial. Another chance for glorious legal combat. Harry laughed, feeling lighter than he had in years. Whatever came next, Sirius's trial, the investigations into Dumbledore's actions, even the looming threat of Voldemort's eventual return, he would face it not alone, but with his strange new family beside him. For the first time in his life, Harry Potter wasn't just surviving. He was beginning to live. Chapter 3, The Darkness and the Light. The Addams family estate in Scotland looked nothing like Harry had imagined. While Hogwarts projected warm, welcoming magic despite its imposing size, the Addams mansion embraced its gothic horror aesthetic with enthusiasm. Gargoyles that actually moved watched from the rooflines. The iron gates opened with an ominous creak that sounded suspiciously deliberate. Mist clung to the ground despite the summer warmth, and Harry could have sworn the trees leaned in as they passed, branches reaching like curious fingers. "Home away from home," Gomez announced cheerfully as their carriages approached. Modest by Addams standards, but it has a certain charm. Modest was not the word Harry would have chosen. The mansion sprawled across the hillside, a chaotic collection of towers, wings, and architectural styles that shouldn't work together but somehow did. Stained glass windows depicted scenes that made Harry quickly look away, and he counted at least 3 graveyards on the property. "The East Cemetery is just for show," Pugsley explained, following Harry's gaze. "The South one has the real bodies. The West one is for emergencies." "Emergencies?" Harry asked, not entirely sure he wanted clarification. "You know, unexpected guests who overstay their welcome," Pugsley replied with a disturbing grin. "Kidding. Mostly." The massive front door opened as they approached, revealing the tallest, most cadaverous man Harry had ever seen. He had to be nearly 8 feet tall, with sunken eyes, greenish skin, and hands the size of dinner plates. "Lurch!" Gomez exclaimed. "Good man. Everything prepared as requested?" Lurch responded with a deep, reverberating groan that somehow conveyed both acknowledgement and disdain for the question. "Excellent. Harry, this is Lurch, our butler and groundskeeper. Lurch, meet Harry Potter, newest addition to our strange little family circle." Lurch bowed formally to Harry, then extended a massive hand. Harry shook it, surprised by the gentle precision of the giant's grip. "Nice to meet you," Harry said, feeling oddly at ease despite Lurch's appearance. There was something comforting about a place where looking different wasn't just accepted but celebrated. Remus Lupin, who had accompanied them from the ministry, seemed less comfortable. He kept glancing around as if expecting something to jump out at him, a not unreasonable concern in an Addams residence. "Mr. Lupin," Morticia approached him with gliding steps. "You seem uneasy. Perhaps a tour would help you acclimate? We've prepared a special suite in the East Wing with reinforced walls and soundproofing for your monthly transformation." Lupin looked startled. "That's very thoughtful, but I usually isolate myself completely during nonsense." Gomez interrupted. "The Addams family has extensive experience with lycanthropy. Great-Aunt Licinia was a werewolf for 30 years. Fantastic hunter, terrible conversationalist during full moons. We developed specialized accommodations, room to run without risk to others." "You don't mind?" Lupin asked, genuine confusion in his voice. Most families wouldn't want a werewolf anywhere near their home. Mr. Lupin, Morticia said with gentle firmness, the Addams family has never aspired to be like most families. Your condition is simply another facet of magical existence, one that can be managed with proper preparation. Harry watched as Lupin's perpetual tension visibly eased. Like Harry himself, Remus was discovering what it felt like to be accepted without qualification or fear. Wednesday appeared at Harry's side, her silent approach making him jump slightly. "Your room is prepared," she informed him. "Along with a study space for us to begin your education in proper magic, not the sanitized curriculum Hogwarts offers." "Lead the way," Harry agreed, intrigued by this promise of unrestricted magical knowledge. The interior of the mansion was a maze of corridors, staircases that seemed to change direction, and rooms filled with artifacts that would have sent ministry officials into conniptions. Harry spotted shelves of books with titles like Communion with the Departed, Beyond Basic Necromancy, and 57 Creative Uses for Blood Magic in Home Defense. His bedroom suite was surprisingly normal by comparison, spacious and comfortable, decorated in deep greens and blues rather than the black he might have expected. The connecting door led to a study lined with bookshelves and featuring a large worktable. "These are foundational texts," Wednesday explained, indicating one bookshelf. "History of Magic without Ministry Censorship. Theory of Magical Cores and Affinities. Proper Occlumency Methods, not the brutalized version Snape knows." Harry ran his fingers along the spines. "This is brilliant. But shouldn't we be focusing on the trial tomorrow? Sirius Black's freedom seems more urgent than magical theory." "The adults are handling the legal preparations," Wednesday replied. "My father lives for courtroom drama, he has 12 strategies prepared already. Our role is different." She fixed Harry with her intense gaze. "Dumbledore has systematically kept you ignorant of your power and heritage. That ends now. Before you face him again, you need to understand what you truly are." "What I am?" Harry repeated, confused. "I'm just Harry." "No," Wednesday stated flatly. "You're a magical nexus point, a wizard with unusual potential being deliberately kept untrained and unaware. The hearing yesterday was just the first step in freeing you from Dumbledore's control. The real battle is for your magical development." She selected a book bound in dark blue leather. "We'll start with this, Magical Affinities, Beyond Light and Dark. It explains how British wizards artificially categorized magic into restrictive moral frameworks to control access to power." Harry accepted the book with a mixture of eagerness and uncertainty. "Won't I get in trouble for learning this?" "The Ministry cannot monitor magic performed here," Wednesday interrupted. "The Addams family has maintained independent magical status since 1743. Our properties exist in a state of diplomatic immunity from magical law enforcement." "Seriously? How?" "A combination of international treaties, complex legal maneuvering, and the occasional strategic marriage or duel," Wednesday explained matter-of-factly. "My ancestors were pragmatic about maintaining our traditions." They spent the next several hours reading and discussing magical theory unlike anything Harry had encountered at Hogwarts. Wednesday was a demanding but effective teacher, challenging his assumptions and pushing him to think beyond the simplistic categories he'd been taught. "So magic isn't inherently dark or light," Harry summarized after finishing the first 3 chapters. "It's all about intention and control. And power," Wednesday added. "British Wizarding Society fears power it cannot control. By labeling certain magics dark, they justify restricting them to maintain the current power structure." Harry frowned thoughtfully. "But some spells are designed just to hurt people. Like the Unforgivables." "Are they?" Wednesday countered. "The Killing Curse was originally developed for humane slaughter of magical creatures resistant to conventional methods. The Imperious Curse has legitimate medical applications in treating certain magical psychological conditions. Even the Cruciatus was initially a diagnostic spell for measuring pain thresholds in dragon handlers." "You're serious?" Harry asked, shocked. The Addams Family Library contains original grimoires documenting their creation and intended purposes, Wednesday confirmed. History is written by those who control the narrative. Like Dumbledore, Harry murmured, making connections. Precisely. Wednesday's eyes gleamed with approval. Now you're beginning to understand. Dumbledore doesn't just control your life, he controls how you perceive magic itself. Their studies were interrupted by Lurch, who appeared at the door with a groaning sound that somehow conveyed, "Dinner is ready," without actual words. "Thank you, Lurch," Wednesday acknowledged. "We'll continue tomorrow morning. For now, food and rest. Tomorrow will be demanding." Dinner with the Addams family was an experience unlike any Harry had known. The long table in the formal dining room was set with silver candelabras, crystal goblets, and plates that Harry tried not to look at too closely after noticing they appeared to be made from polished human skulls, decorative replicas, Morticia assured him when she noticed his discomfort, though Harry wasn't entirely convinced. The conversation flowed from topics as mundane as Pugsley's latest explosive experiments to in-depth discussions of international magical law that Gomez was preparing for Sirius's trial. Harry was struck by how the family included him naturally in their discussions, asking his opinion and explaining concepts without condescension. "The trial strategy is straightforward," Gomez explained between bites of something Harry couldn't identify but had cautiously found delicious. "Veritaserum testimony is irrefutable. Once Black confirms under truth serum that he wasn't the secret keeper, the case collapses." "What about his escape from the scene?" Lupin asked, his own plate notably lacking the more exotic dishes. "The witnesses who saw him confront Pettigrew." "Pensive memories," Morticia suggested. "If Black provides his recollection of the event, it can be verified by magical signature analysis." "The real question," Wednesday interjected, "is why Dumbledore allowed this miscarriage of justice to continue for a decade when he had the power to demand a proper trial as Chief Warlock." A silence fell over the table as everyone considered the implications. "He needed me with the Dursleys," Harry said quietly, the realization dawning with painful clarity. "If Sirius was free, he'd have gotten custody of me immediately. And raised you as a confident, knowledgeable wizard with connections throughout magical Britain," Wednesday concluded. "Instead of an isolated, ignorant boy grateful for any scrap of affection or information." "That's quite an accusation," Lupin said, though his tone suggested he wasn't dismissing it outright. "Is it?" Gomez challenged. "Consider the pattern, Lupin. The sealed will. The misappropriated funds. The mail redirection. The deliberate placement with magic-hating muggles. Each action systematically isolated Harry and placed him under Dumbledore's exclusive influence." Lupin's expression darkened. "When you put it that way. The why matters less than the remedy at this point," Morticia observed practically. "Tomorrow's trial will free Sirius, completing the triumvirate guardianship. Then we can address the larger issue of Dumbledore's influence over Harry's education and future." "I want to understand about the prophecy," Harry said suddenly. "Dumbledore mentioned it in his written testimony. Something about me and Voldemort." The adults exchanged glances. "The full prophecy is recorded in the Department of Mysteries," Wednesday explained. "But its general content is known to those with certain connections." She looked to her parents, who nodded permission. "It predicted a child born as the seventh month dies, marked by the Dark Lord as his equal, with power the Dark Lord knows not," Wednesday recited. "It stated that neither can live while the other survives." Harry absorbed this in silence. "So I have to kill him. Or he kills me." "Prophecies are notoriously subject to interpretation," Morticia cautioned. "And many never come to pass at all. They're possibilities, not certainties." "But Dumbledore believes this one," Harry pointed out. "That's why he's been managing me. He's preparing me to face Voldemort eventually." "Without actually preparing you," Wednesday corrected sharply. "He's kept you ignorant of your heritage, your magical potential, and even basic self-defense beyond first-year spells." "That's not preparation, it's the opposite. Unless he wants you to face Voldemort from a position of weakness, Gomez suggested, his usual exuberance dimmed by the serious topic. Which raises disturbing questions about his ultimate intentions. Lupin looked physically ill. I can't believe Dumbledore would deliberately. Belief is irrelevant compared to evidence, Wednesday stated. And the evidence clearly shows a pattern of actions that have left Harry vulnerable rather than strengthened. After dinner, Harry found himself unable to sleep despite physical exhaustion. His mind raced with everything he'd learned, about magic, about Dumbledore's manipulations, about the prophecy that apparently dictated his destiny. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Come in, he called, expecting Wednesday with more books. Instead, Remus Lupin entered, looking hesitant. I hope I'm not intruding. He sighed. I wanted to check on you. Today has been overwhelming, I imagine. Harry nodded, grateful for the concern. It's a lot to take in. Lupin sat on the edge of the bed. I knew your parents well, Harry. James was like a brother to me. Lily was the kindest, fiercest witch I've ever known. They would be furious about what's happened to you. Tell me about them. Harry asked. Not just that they were brave or kind, but real stories. What made them laugh? What did they argue about? Lupin smiled, his careworn face transforming. For the next hour, he shared stories about the Marauders' school days, James's hopeless pursuit of Lily until 7th year, and quiet moments during the war when the future had seemed uncertain but they'd found joy anyway. Your mother used to sing to you, Lupin recalled, his voice soft with memory. Old Celtic lullabies her own mother taught her. Your father would dance you around the living room on his feet. You were so loved, Harry. So completely loved. Harry swallowed against the lump in his throat. Thanks for telling me. No one ever just talks about them like they were real people. They were very real, Lupin assured him. And starting tomorrow, when Sirius is freed, you'll have 2 people who can fill in all the details of their lives. He hesitated. The Addams family is unusual, but I'm beginning to think they're exactly what you need right now. They see through pretense and fight fiercely for their own. Wednesday says I'm part of their family now, Harry said. Because of the ritual and the guardianship. The Addams take such bonds very seriously, Lupin confirmed. It's an old magical tradition that most British wizards have forgotten, the creation of chosen family through shared magic and intent. After Lupin left, Harry finally drifted to sleep, his dreams a strange mixture of courtrooms, ancient magic, and for once, the gentle echo of his mother's lullaby. Sirius Black's trial was held in Courtroom 10, the most secure location in the Ministry of Magic. Unlike Harry's custody hearing, this proceeding was closed to the general public, with only essential witnesses, Wizengamot members, and those with direct involvement permitted to attend. Harry sat between Wednesday and Remus in the front row of the gallery, the rest of the Addams family arrayed around them like a protective formation. The atmosphere was tense, with Aurors stationed at every entrance and a special security detail surrounding the chair in the center of the room where the prisoner would be seated. They're treating him like Voldemort himself, Harry muttered, noting the excessive precautions. The Ministry is protecting itself, Wednesday replied quietly. If Black is innocent, as we know he is, then they've imprisoned an heir to a noble house without trial for 10 years. The political fallout will be seismic. Amelia Bones entered and took her position as lead interrogator. Unlike Harry's hearing, Dumbledore was present today, though not in the Chief Warlock's chair. He sat among the regular Wizengamot members, his expression carefully neutral. He's calculating how to spin this to minimize damage to his reputation, Wednesday observed, following Harry's gaze. Watch his eyes, they're tracking key political players, not focusing on the proceedings themselves. The side door opened, and Sirius Black was led in by 4 Aurors. Harry inhaled sharply. The man barely resembled the handsome, laughing figure from the few photographs he'd seen. Azkaban had hollowed him, turned his once thick dark hair into a matted tangle, and carved deep lines into his face. He was painfully thin, shackled at wrists and ankles, yet he moved with a dignity that impressed Harry immediately. As Sirius was secured to the chair, his gaze swept the room and locked on Harry. Something like pain and wonder crossed his gaunt face, and his cracked lips formed what might have been Harry's name, though no sound emerged. Harry nodded to him, trying to convey support through the simple gesture. Beside him, Lupin was rigid with emotion. "Bring in the Veritaserum," Madame Bones ordered. A ministry potioneer approached with a small vial of clear liquid. "For the record," Bones announced, "this Veritaserum has been independently verified by 3 potions masters, including Severus Snape of Hogwarts. 3 drops will be administered, and questioning will proceed according to standard protocols." The potioneer administered the serum, and Harry watched as Sirius's expression went slack, his eyes unfocusing slightly. "State your name for the record," Bones began. "Sirius Orion Black," came the flat, truth-serum voice. "Were you the secret keeper for James and Lily Potter?" "No. I was the initial choice, but I suggested Peter Pettigrew instead. I thought it was the perfect bluff, no one would suspect him." A murmur ran through the Wizengamot. "Did you betray the Potter's location to Lord Voldemort?" "No. Never. I would have died first." "Did you kill Peter Pettigrew and 12 Muggles on November 1, 1981? "No. I confronted Peter, but he shouted that I had betrayed James and Lily, cut off his own finger, blew up the street with his wand behind his back, and transformed into his rat animagus form to escape through the sewers." The murmurs grew louder. Dumbledore's expression had grown grave, his eyes no longer tracking political allies but fixed on Sirius. "Pettigrew was an unregistered animagus?" Bones clarified. "Yes. A rat. We all became animagi in school to accompany Remus during his transformations. James was a stag. I'm a large black dog. Peter was a common brown rat." This revelation caused an uproar that took Bones several minutes to quiet. "Why did you escape from Azkaban?" she continued once order was restored. "I saw a newspaper photo of the Weasley family. Peter was there, as their pet rat. Missing a toe where he'd cut off his finger. He was at Hogwarts, close to Harry. I had to protect my godson." Harry felt a surge of emotion. Even after years of wrongful imprisonment, Sirius's first thought had been to protect him. "One final question," Bones said. "Did you receive a trial before your incarceration in Azkaban?" "No. I was arrested by Aurors at the scene, questioned briefly by Bartemius Crouch Sr., and sent directly to Azkaban. No formal charges, no trial, no Veritaserum." The courtroom exploded into chaos. Wizengamot members were on their feet, shouting questions and accusations. Dumbledore sat motionless, his expression unreadable. Gomez leapt into action, striding to the center of the courtroom with theatrical timing. "Honored members of the Wizengamot. The evidence is unequivocal. Sirius Black, heir to the noble and most ancient house of Black, godfather to Harry Potter, was imprisoned without trial for a crime he did not commit. This represents the most egregious miscarriage of justice in modern British magical history." The chair recognizes Gomez Adams, Bones acknowledged, allowing him to formally address the court. "I move for immediate dismissal of all charges against Sirius Black, full exoneration, financial compensation for wrongful imprisonment, and an immediate investigation into how such a failure of justice was permitted to continue for 10 years. Gomez declared, his voice ringing through the courtroom. Bones nodded gravely. "A vote will be taken after the antidote is administered and Mr. Black has had an opportunity to provide additional testimony if he wishes." The potioneer administered the antidote, and Sirius's eyes slowly cleared. He straightened in the chair, looking directly at Madame Bones. "I request permission to provide pensive memories of the events in question," he said, his voice hoarse but steady. "Particularly my conversation with Albus Dumbledore immediately after James and Lily's deaths, in which I informed him that Peter was the secret keeper." Every eye in the courtroom turned to Dumbledore, whose composure finally slipped, showing momentary alarm before his features smoothed again. "That would be appropriate," Bones agreed. "Auror Shacklebolt, please prepare the pensieve." The next hour was devastating for Dumbledore's reputation. Sirius's memories, displayed for the entire Wizengamot, clearly showed his conversation with Dumbledore outside the ruined Potter cottage. In the memory, a younger Sirius was wild with grief but coherent, explicitly telling Dumbledore that Peter betrayed them and that I wasn't the secret keeper. Memory Dumbledore had nodded gravely and assured Sirius that justice will be served, then instructed him to let Hagrid take Harry to safety, while he secured the scene. The memory then jumped to Sirius's brief interrogation by Crouch, during which he repeatedly asked for Dumbledore to confirm what he'd been told about Pettigrew. Crouch dismissed these requests, and no Veritaserum was offered or suggested. As the memories concluded, the courtroom was deathly silent. Then, slowly, heads began to turn toward Dumbledore, who sat very still, his hands folded in his lap. Amelia Bones broke the silence. "Albus Dumbledore, these memories directly contradict your previous statements that you had no knowledge of who served as secret keeper for the Potters. They also indicate you were aware of Mr. Black's claims of innocence before his incarceration. As chief warlock at that time, you had the authority and responsibility to ensure proper judicial process. How do you respond?" Dumbledore rose slowly. "The times immediately following Voldemort's fall were chaotic, Amelia. Many decisions were made quickly, with limited information. I regret that Mr. Black's claims were not properly investigated, but you made no effort to investigate them," Sirius interrupted, his voice stronger now. "For 10 years, Albus. 10 years I rotted in Azkaban while you knew I'd told you Peter was the traitor." "The evidence against you seemed overwhelming," Dumbledore replied, his tone gentle but his eyes hard. "Multiple witnesses saw your confrontation with Peter. Yet you knew that wasn't the whole story," Gomez interjected. "As demonstrated by the memory we just witnessed. At minimum, this constitutes criminal negligence. At worst, deliberate obstruction of justice. I move that Albus Dumbledore be removed from these proceedings and his actions be subject to separate investigation," came a new voice. Severus Snape had risen from his seat in the witness area, his expression coldly furious. "His presence constitutes a conflict of interest." Harry stared in shock. Snape, defending Sirius Black. The world had truly turned upside down. "Seconded," barked Augusta Longbottom. "This matter must be addressed separately. For now, let us complete the business of Mr. Black's exoneration." The vote was unanimous. Sirius Black was declared innocent of all charges, his record expunged, and compensation of 100,000 galleons per year of wrongful imprisonment ordered paid from ministry funds. Additionally, an official apology would be issued through all major wizarding publications. As the shackles were removed from his limbs, Sirius stood unsteadily. His gaze found Harry again, and this time, he smiled, a shadow of the charming grin from photographs, but genuine nonetheless. Harry couldn't wait any longer. Ignoring protocol, he vaulted over the gallery railing and rushed forward. Aurors moved to intercept him, but Madame Bones waved them back with a rare display of emotion. "Harry," Sirius croaked as Harry reached him. "You look so like James." "But your eyes, my mother's," Harry finished, smiling through sudden tears. "I know." Sirius embraced him then, his thin arms surprisingly strong. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I should have been there. I should have protected you." "You tried," Harry assured him. "And now you're free. We can be a family." Remus approached more sedately, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "Padfoot," he said simply. "Moony," Sirius replied, his voice breaking. "You look terrible." "Speak for yourself," Remus shot back, then they were embracing, years of separation and misunderstanding dissolving in the simple recognition of brotherhood restored. Gomez cleared his throat. "Touching as this reunion is, Mr. Black requires immediate medical attention." St. Mungo's has a specialist team waiting to begin treatment for long-term dementor exposure. No hospitals, Sirius protested weakly. I've had enough of confinement. The Adams estate has appropriate facilities, Morticia offered, approaching with gliding steps. Our family healer specializes in magical trauma and soul damage. The treatment can be administered there, with proper supervision. Soul damage? Harry questioned. Dementors feed on positive emotions and soul energy, Wednesday explained quietly. Extended exposure creates tears in the soul's protective barriers that require specialized healing. Sirius looked warily at the Adams family. Who exactly are you people? Your godson's magical advocates, Wednesday stated simply. And now, by extension, yours. They've been brilliant, Sirius, Harry assured him. They're the ones who discovered you never got a trial and pushed for this hearing. Then I owe you my freedom, Sirius acknowledged, inclining his head to Gomez and Morticia. And my godson's well-being. That's a debt I can never repay. The Adams family doesn't recognize conventional debt, Morticia replied with a small smile. We act according to our own code. Freeing you completes the triumvirate guardianship selected by Potter family magic, you, Remus, and our Wednesday. Sirius looked startled. A triumvirate? That's ancient magic. The Potters were an ancient family, Wednesday pointed out. Their magic recognized the need for balanced guardianship, your legal authority, Remus's academic guidance, and my family's protection. As they prepared to leave, Harry noticed Dumbledore watching from across the chamber, his expression troubled. Making a sudden decision, Harry approached the old wizard, Wednesday silently following. Professor, Harry addressed him directly, I want to understand why. Dumbledore sighed heavily. It's not a simple explanation, Harry. Try me, Harry challenged. I've faced Voldemort twice now. I think I deserve the truth. Something like resignation crossed Dumbledore's face. Perhaps you do, he admitted. But this is neither the time nor place for such a conversation. Then when? Harry pressed. After another year of being kept in the dark. After facing more dangers without understanding why. I have only ever wanted to protect you, Harry, Dumbledore said softly. To preserve what childhood you could have. That's not an answer, Harry responded, surprising himself with his firmness. And I didn't have a childhood to preserve. You made sure of that when you left me with the Dursleys. Wednesday stepped forward. Dumbledore has operated on a need-to-know basis with your life, Harry. He alone has decided what you need to know, when you need to know it, and how much information you can handle. An assessment I made based on years of experience, Dumbledore countered, a hint of steel entering his voice. Experience that taught you to manipulate rather than empower, Wednesday replied coolly. To control rather than educate. That approach ends now. Dumbledore's eyes narrowed slightly. You speak with remarkable confidence for one so young, Miss Adams. Age doesn't guarantee wisdom, Wednesday stated. Actions reveal character more reliably than years lived. Your actions regarding Harry demonstrate a pattern of control disguised as protection. Harry stepped between them, sensing the rising tension. Professor, I'm not coming back to Hogwarts until I have answers. Real answers, not half-truths, or, when you're older, excuses. Alarm flashed across Dumbledore's face. Harry, Hogwarts is the safest place for you. With Voldemort's potential return, I was nearly killed at Hogwarts twice last year, Harry interrupted. Once by a professor possessed by Voldemort, and once by a troll that somehow got past all those famous wards. Safe is relative. The Adams estate has protection equal to Hogwarts, Wednesday added. An education tailored to Harry's specific needs rather than ministry-approved limitations. Dumbledore looked genuinely disturbed now. Harry, I must caution you against rejecting conventional magical education. There are dangers in pursuing certain branches of magic without proper guidance. You mean branches the ministry has labeled dark? Harry challenged. Wednesday's been teaching me about magical theory beyond those artificial categories. Magic is intent and power, not arbitrary moral labels. That philosophy has led many promising wizards down destructive paths, Dumbledore warned. Including Tom Riddle. An excessive restriction has stunted the magical development of generations of British wizards, Wednesday countered. Creating a society unable to defend itself effectively when threats arise. Harry studied Dumbledore's face, seeing genuine concern there despite everything. "I'm not rejecting Hogwarts forever," he clarified. "But I need time to learn who I really am, what my magic can do, and what this prophecy actually means for my future. I can't do that if I'm being kept in the dark." For a long moment, Dumbledore was silent. Then, with a slight nod, he said, "Perhaps we can find a compromise. I will provide the information you seek, the full prophecy, the reasons behind my decisions, everything, if you agree to return to Hogwarts afterward. With certain accommodations for your continued education in areas not covered by the standard curriculum." Harry looked to Wednesday, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. "I'll consider it," Harry agreed. "After I've had time with my godfather and proper magical training." Dumbledore seemed to age before his eyes. "I have made mistakes, Harry. Serious ones, it seems. I hope one day you'll understand they were made with the best intentions." "Intentions matter less than outcomes, Professor," Harry replied, echoing Wednesday's earlier lesson. "And the outcome of your decisions was years of suffering for both me and Sirius." As they turned to leave, Dumbledore called after them. "Miss Adams, a word of caution. The path you're guiding Harry down has dangers you may not fully comprehend." Wednesday paused but didn't turn back. "Unlike you, Headmaster, I don't presume to make decisions for Harry. I provide information and options. He chooses his own path. And that," Dumbledore said softly, "is what concerns me most." The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of activity at the Adams estate. Sirius underwent intensive treatment for the damage caused by Azkaban, his recovery aided by the Adams family healer, a witch who appeared to be at least 200 years old and spoke in riddles that somehow cured more effectively than conventional medicine. "Soul tissue is like fabric," she explained to Harry during one of Sirius's treatments. "Dementors create tears. We reweave the pattern with positive energy and memory anchors." Harry's own education continued daily under Wednesday's guidance, supplemented by Remus's expertise in defense against the dark arts and, when he was lucid enough, Sirius's knowledge of creative spell application. "Your father and I created our own spells," Sirius told him during a rare clear-headed afternoon. "The Marauder's map wasn't just clever charms work, it was original magic based on principles most wizards never bother to study." Morticia supervised practical lessons in what the Adams family simply called intent magic, casting based on focused will rather than rigid incantations. British wizards became dependent on Latin formulations because they're easier to standardize and control, she explained as Harry struggled to light a candle through pure focused intent. But the oldest, most powerful magic requires only clear purpose and directed will. Gomez, meanwhile, taught Harry about wizarding politics and the complex legal structures governing magical society, knowledge Dumbledore had conspicuously failed to provide despite Harry's status as the last Potter. "You're not just a student, my boy," Gomez exclaimed during one particularly animated lesson. "You're the heir to an ancient and noble house. That carries responsibilities, privileges, and political power that Dumbledore has deliberately kept from you." Even Pugsley contributed to Harry's education, though his lessons in creative problem-solving through controlled destruction were carefully monitored by the adults. "Sometimes the best solution isn't the most obvious or conventional one," Pugsley explained sagely as they examined the smoking remains of what had been a practice dummy. "Sometimes you need to blow stuff up and see what happens." Through it all, Wednesday remained Harry's primary teacher and guide. Her methodical approach to magical education focused on understanding principles before attempting practice, the opposite of Hogwarts' often haphazard, try-until-it-works, methodology. Magic responds to mental models, she explained during a particularly challenging lesson on transfiguration theory. If your understanding is flawed or incomplete, your magic will be similarly limited. On a warm evening 3 weeks after Sirius's trial, Harry and Wednesday sat in the estate's east garden, surrounded by plants that seemed to watch them with unsettling awareness. The day's lessons had focused on occlumency, the mental discipline of organizing and protecting one's thoughts. Your natural shields are unusually strong, Wednesday observed. But chaotically structured. Likely a response to trauma, your mind protecting itself the only way it knew how. Harry nodded, exhausted but satisfied with his progress. It's getting easier to organize everything. Like cleaning up a room that's been messy for years. Your connection to Voldemort complicates matters, Wednesday noted. The scar creates a vulnerability that conventional occlumency can't fully address. Could it be removed? Harry asked, touching the lightning bolt mark that had defined his life. Not without risk, Wednesday replied. It's not just a scar, it's a magical connection. Severing it improperly could damage your own magic. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching as the strange luminous flowers around them opened to the evening air. The new custody arrangement will be finalized tomorrow, Wednesday said finally. With Sirius's legal status restored and the triumvirate guardianship approved by the Ministry, Dumbledore's last official connection to you will be severed. And then I decide about returning to Hogwarts, Harry sighed. I'm still not sure. What concerns you most? Wednesday asked. Harry considered this. Going back to being seen as just the boy who lived rather than me. Being restricted in what I can learn. Dumbledore watching my every move. He paused. And leaving all this behind. You wouldn't be leaving it behind, Wednesday corrected. The triumvirate guardianship continues regardless of where you study. My family's resources remain available to you. And the mental and magical disciplines you've learned will stay with you. It won't be the same, though, Harry pointed out. At Hogwarts, I'll be back under their rules, their limitations. Only externally, Wednesday replied. Internal freedom is harder to constrain. You've begun to learn who you truly are, beyond the labels others have placed on you. That knowledge can't be taken away. Harry studied her, this strange, intense girl who had transformed his life in less than a month. Will you come to Hogwarts too? If I decide to go back. No, Wednesday said simply. My education follows a different path. But distance doesn't sever magical connections. I'll miss this, Harry admitted. Working with you. Learning without limits. Holidays exist, Wednesday pointed out practically. And emergencies. Harry grinned. Is that Wednesday Adams' humor? Merely practical planning, she replied, though a hint of amusement flickered in her dark eyes. The next morning, they gathered in the estate's formal drawing room for the official custody ceremony. A ministry official, one thoroughly vetted by Gomez for impartiality, presided over the ritual that would formally establish the triumvirate guardianship. Sirius, looking remarkably improved after weeks of treatment, stood tall in formal robes bearing the black family crest. Remus was similarly attired, though his robes were simpler. Wednesday wore a black dress more formal than her usual attire, with the Addams family emblem, a raven clutching a dagger, embroidered at the collar. The triumvirate recognizes 3 pillars of guardianship, the ministry official intoned. The protector, the mentor, and the guide. Each provides a critical element in the development of a magical child. Sirius stepped forward first. As godfather to Harry James Potter, I accept the role of protector. I vow to shield him from harm, provide for his material needs, and ensure his physical well-being until he reaches magical majority. A golden thread emerged from the official's wand, wrapping around Sirius's wrist before extending toward Harry. Next, Remus approached. I accept the role of mentor. I vow to support Harry James Potter's intellectual and emotional growth, to provide counsel and perspective, and to help him navigate the challenges of both magical and mundane worlds. A silver thread joined the gold, twining together before reaching toward Harry. Finally, Wednesday stepped forward. I accept the role of guide. I vow to ensure Harry James Potter's magical development proceeds without artificial limitation, to protect his right to knowledge and self-determination, and to maintain the connection between his magic and his true potential. A third thread, midnight blue, emerged and intertwined with the others, creating a complex braid that connected all three guardians to Harry. Do you, Harry James Potter, accept this triumvirate as your magical guardians until you reach the age of majority? The official asked. Harry looked at the three people who had committed themselves to his welfare: Sirius, still healing but determined; Remus, steady and kind; and Wednesday, unflinching in her dedication to truth and potential. I do, he said firmly. The braided threads flared with brilliant light, then sank beneath his skin, leaving a momentary warm glow before fading. The magic settled around him like a comfortable cloak, distinct from but harmonious with the protection established in the earlier ritual. It is done, the official declared. The triumvirate guardianship is established and recorded in Ministry archives. Albus Dumbledore's magical guardianship is hereby terminated in full. Sirius whooped with uncharacteristic exuberance, pulling Harry into a bear hug. Free at last, pup. Truly free. Remus smiled, his eyes suspiciously bright. James and Lily would be proud, Harry. Not just of who you are, but of how you fought for your autonomy. Wednesday simply nodded, satisfaction evident in her usually impassive face. Later that afternoon, Harry sat with his three guardians in the library to discuss his educational future. Morticia and Gomez had tactfully excused themselves, recognizing this as a decision for the triumvirate and their ward alone. Dumbledore has agreed to a meeting tomorrow, Sirius informed them. On neutral ground, Gringotts, with goblin privacy wards. He'll provide the full prophecy and answer your questions about his actions. After which, Remus continued, you'll need to decide whether to return to Hogwarts or pursue alternative education. The Addams family would continue your training regardless, Wednesday added. Either supplementing Hogwarts during holidays or as your primary education if you choose not to return. Harry looked between them, marveling at how different this conversation was from any he'd previously experienced. No one was telling him what he should do or manipulating him toward a predetermined outcome. They were presenting options and trusting him to choose. I think, he said slowly, I need to hear what Dumbledore has to say first. Not just about the prophecy, but about why he made the choices he did. Then I can decide. A reasonable approach, Wednesday approved. Whatever you decide, we'll support you, Sirius promised. That's what proper guardians do, support, not control. The meeting with Dumbledore the following day was tense but productive. In a private Gringotts conference room, Harry finally heard the full prophecy and Dumbledore's explanation for his actions over the past decade. I believed isolation was necessary, the headmaster admitted, looking older and more tired than Harry had ever seen him. The blood protection required family connection, yes, but I also feared that fame would corrupt you, or that knowledge of your destiny would burden you too young. So you decided that abuse was preferable to potential arrogance? Harry challenged. I never intended for you to be abused, Dumbledore insisted. I believed Petunia would overcome her jealousy of Lily for the sake of a child. You didn't check, Harry pointed out. Not once in 10 years. A grievous error, Dumbledore acknowledged. One of many, it seems. My focus on the greater threat, Voldemort's eventual return, blinded me to your immediate well-being. And Sirius? Harry pressed. You knew he wasn't the secret keeper. The memory was clear. Here, Dumbledore hesitated. In the chaos following Voldemort's fall, many decisions were made hastily. Sirius's behavior, his pursuit of Peter, his apparent madness at the scene, seemed to confirm what the evidence suggested. By the time I might have intervened, he was already in Azkaban, and my attention was focused on securing your safety. Convenient, Wednesday observed coldly. That the one person who would have challenged Harry's placement with the Dursleys was removed from the equation. Dumbledore met her gaze directly. "Miss Adams, I understand your suspicion. In your position, I would likely share it. But I did not deliberately allow an innocent man to be imprisoned to further my plans. Yet you made no effort to investigate his claims or ensure he received a trial," Sirius noted, his voice remarkably controlled given the subject. "Despite your position as chief warlock." "Another failure I must acknowledge," Dumbledore conceded. "The focus on capturing remaining Death Eaters and stabilizing a society in turmoil took precedence over individual cases, wrongly, as I now recognize." The conversation continued for hours, with Dumbledore explaining his perspective on each decision while acknowledging the flaws in his approach. The prophecy itself, that Harry must ultimately confront Voldemort, that one must die at the hand of the other, was sobering but not entirely surprising given what Harry had already pieced together. "The power the Dark Lord knows not," Dumbledore explained, "I have long believed refers to your capacity for love, an emotion Voldemort cannot understand or experience." "A convenient interpretation," Wednesday noted. "Since love requires no specific training or knowledge that might empower Harry beyond your control." Dumbledore sighed heavily. "You see calculation in every action, Miss Adams. When a pattern emerges consistently across dozens of decisions, it's not paranoia to identify it," Wednesday replied evenly. As the meeting concluded, Dumbledore made a final appeal. "Harry, Hogwarts needs you, not just as a student, but as a symbol of hope and resilience. And despite my errors, I believe you need Hogwarts too, the community, the structured learning environment, the friendships you've formed." Harry considered this. "If I return, things would need to change. No more secrets. No more manipulations disguised as protection. I give you my word," Dumbledore promised. "Words are easily given," Wednesday observed. "Actions reveal truth. Which is why," Harry continued, "I'd want certain guarantees. Written ones, magically binding." Dumbledore looked surprised. "Such as? Access to my family vault and properties. Permission for advanced independent study beyond the standard curriculum. Regular visits with my guardians. And complete transparency about anything that affects me directly, including plans for my protection or training." The old wizard studied Harry with new eyes, seeing not the malleable child he had expected but a young man making rational demands. "Those terms are not unreasonable," he conceded. "Though the specifics would need refinement. Sirius and Wednesday can handle that part," Harry said confidently. "They're good with contracts and loopholes." Sirius grinned wolfishly. "Very good." After Dumbledore departed, Harry sat with his guardians to make his final decision. "I think I should go back," he said after careful consideration. "Not because Dumbledore wants me to, but because my friends are there. And because running away from Hogwarts feels like letting him win somehow." "A reasonable conclusion," Wednesday acknowledged. "Confronting manipulative systems from within can be more effective than opposing them from outside. Plus," Sirius added with a grin, "now that you know what you're looking for, you can spot his machinations more easily. Knowledge is power, pup. And we'll continue your supplementary education during holidays," Remus promised. "Ensuring you develop beyond Hogwarts limitations." Harry nodded, feeling a sense of peace with his decision. "There's something else I want to do before returning, though. Visit my parents' graves. I never have, you know. I don't even know where they're buried." "Godric's Hollow," Sirius said softly. "We can take you tomorrow." The visit to Godric's Hollow was both painful and healing. Harry stood before his parents' shared headstone, Sirius and Remus flanking him with supportive hands on his shoulders, while Wednesday maintained a respectful distance. "I wish I remembered them," Harry said, tracing the engraved names with his fingers. "They live in you," Sirius told him. "Not just in your eyes or the shape of your face, but in your courage and determination. And now you have their stories too," Remus added. "Not just the legend, but the real people, James who couldn't cook to save his life but tried anyway every Sunday morning, Lily who sang off-key but with such joy no one had the heart to tell her. Harry smiled through tears. "Thank you for giving them back to me." Later, as they walked through the village, Wednesday joined him while Sirius and Remus visited old haunts. "You seem at peace with your decision," she observed. Harry nodded. "I am. Going back doesn't mean forgetting what I've learned or who I am. It means bringing that knowledge with me, seeing everything through new eyes." "The Addams family has a saying," Wednesday told him. "Darkness exists in light, light exists in darkness. Neither can be whole without acknowledging the other." "What does that mean?" Harry asked. "That artificial divisions, light and dark, good and evil, permitted and forbidden, limit our understanding of magic and ourselves," Wednesday explained. "True power comes from integration, not separation." "Is that the power he knows not?" Harry wondered. "Not just love, but this wholeness. This rejection of artificial limitations." "Perhaps," Wednesday allowed. "Voldemort embraced what British wizards call dark magic while rejecting its counterbalance. Dumbledore does the opposite, championing light magic while demonizing its complement. Both approaches are fundamentally unbalanced." Harry considered this. "And the Addams approach?" "We recognize that all magic exists on a spectrum, not in separate categories. Intent and control determine outcome, not arbitrary classification." Wednesday looked at him directly. "That understanding, that magic simply is, neither light nor dark until shaped by the wizard's will, that might indeed be a power Voldemort cannot comprehend." The day before Harry was to return to Hogwarts, the Addams family hosted a small gathering at their estate. In addition to his guardians, several unexpected guests attended: Professor McGonagall, who had been instrumental in renegotiating Harry's Hogwarts accommodations, Professor Snape, whose continued support had surprised everyone, and the Weasley twins, who had somehow befriended Pugsley through correspondence about explosive potions. "Wicked place, Harry." Fred, or possibly George, exclaimed, eyeing the mansion's Gothic architecture with appreciation. "Those gargoyles actually moved when we came in," George, or possibly Fred, added. "Tried to snatch my hat." "They're trained to recognize pranksters," Pugsley explained proudly. "Family security feature. Wait till you see the man-eating plants in the conservatory." Morticia glided over to where Harry stood watching the interactions with amusement. "Your friends are energetic," she observed with gentle humor. "They're brilliant," Harry assured her. "Just a bit overwhelming at first." "Like our family," Morticia acknowledged. "Different versions of unconventional." McGonagall approached, looking only slightly uncomfortable in the mansion that seemed designed to unsettle conventional wizards. "Mr. Potter, everything is arranged for your return tomorrow. The contract has been signed by the headmaster and filed with the Board of Governors." "Thank you, Professor," Harry said sincerely. "For everything. You've been brilliant through all this." McGonagall's stern expression softened. "I failed you once, Mr. Potter. I do not intend to repeat that mistake. Your weekly meetings with me are scheduled, and I will personally oversee your advanced studies program." Even Snape, lurking near the refreshment table with an expression of contained distaste, had contributed to the arrangements. He would provide specialized potions tutoring, to correct the abysmal foundation you received last year, as he put it, and assist with the occlumency practice needed to manage Harry's scar connection. As the evening progressed, Harry found himself on the mansion's east balcony, gazing at stars that seemed impossibly bright away from city lights. Wednesday joined him, silent as always until she chose to speak. "Nervous about tomorrow?" she asked finally. Harry considered this. "Not nervous exactly. Just, aware that I'm going back as someone different than who left." "Growth often feels that way," Wednesday noted. "The person you were and the person you've become existing simultaneously in your awareness." "Will I see you again before Christmas holidays?" Harry asked. If necessary, Wednesday replied practically. The triumvirate connection allows for communication and emergency visitation. That's not really what I asked, Harry pointed out with a smile. Wednesday looked at him directly, something almost like affection in her usually impassive gaze. The Addams family takes magical connections seriously, Harry. You're part of our circle now. Distance doesn't change that. She reached into her pocket and withdrew a small black box. This is for you. An Addams family tradition for those under our protection. Harry opened it to find an unusual pendant, a silver raven clutching a tiny crystal vial containing what appeared to be a drop of blood. Is this, he began. My blood, Wednesday confirmed. Combined with essence of raven feather and moonstone. If you're in danger, crush the vial. I'll know immediately. Harry was touched by the gift's significance. Thank you. I'll keep it with me always. It's not sentimental, Wednesday stated, though her expression suggested otherwise. Merely practical. Of course, Harry agreed, hiding a smile. Purely practical. The next morning, Harry stood on platform 9 3/4, surrounded by his unusual new family. Sirius, still too thin but improving daily, kept an arm around Harry's shoulders as if afraid he might disappear. Remus stood nearby, calmly ensuring Harry's trunk contained all necessary supplies. The Addams family created a striking tableau among the conventional wizarding families, Morticia's elegant Gothic beauty drawing stares, Gomez's exuberant gestures causing nearby parents to pull their children closer, Grandmama cackling at some private joke while feeding suspicious treats to passing owls. Remember, Sirius said for perhaps the 10th time, the mirror in your trunk works both ways. Call anytime, day, night, doesn't matter. And the port key, Remus added, tapping the emergency bracelet concealed under Harry's sleeve. One twist activates it. It will bring you directly to the Addams estate if needed. And your occlumency exercises, Wednesday reminded him. Every night before sleep. Your mental defenses must become automatic. Harry nodded, feeling both overwhelmed and deeply loved by their concern. I'll remember everything, he promised. And I'll write twice a week. As the train whistle blew, Harry embraced each of his guardians in turn, ending with Wednesday. To everyone's surprise, including possibly her own, she returned the hug briefly. Remember what you've learned, she said quietly. Not just the magic, but the truth about yourself. You are not defined by their expectations or limitations. I know, Harry assured her. Thanks to you. Boarding the train, he found a compartment and leaned out the window to wave as the Hogwarts Express pulled away from the platform. His strange, wonderful new family remained in view until the train rounded a bend, Sirius still waving enthusiastically while the Addams family maintained their dignified tableau of elegant eccentricity. As the journey to Hogwarts began, Harry touched the raven pendant beneath his robes and smiled. He was returning to the first place he'd ever called home, but he was no longer the same desperate, ignorant boy who had arrived there a year ago. He understood now what Wednesday had meant about integration, about carrying both darkness and light within oneself. Whatever challenges awaited, whether Dumbledore's continued machinations, Voldemort's eventual return, or the ordinary trials of growing up magical, he would face them not as the boy who lived, defined by others' expectations and manipulated for others' purposes, but as Harry Potter, heir to an ancient family, student of comprehensive magic, and honorary member of the Addams clan. It was, he decided, a rather good beginning. Epilogue. 3 months later Albus Dumbledore stared at the parchment before him, his expression a mixture of concern and grudging admiration. Harry Potter's midterm assessments showed remarkable improvement across all subjects, particularly in areas like transfiguration and defense, where understanding magical theory was as important as practical application. More concerning were the reports from professors about Harry's changed behavior and attitudes. No longer hesitant to question authority or challenge conventional explanations, he had become what Professor Flitwick described as intellectually independent, and what Severus Snape, with surprising lack of vitriol, called finally thinking for himself. The boys' friendship circle had expanded beyond Gryffindor to include students from all houses who shared his newfound intellectual curiosity. Even more surprisingly, he had developed a civil working relationship with Draco Malfoy after challenging the Slytherin's blood supremacy beliefs with historical evidence and magical theory that left the Malfoy heir begrudgingly reassessing his positions. "He's not following your script anymore, is he?" came a voice from the doorway. Dumbledore didn't need to look up to recognize Wednesday Addams, though how she had entered Hogwarts undetected remained a mystery. "Miss Addams. An unexpected visit. Monthly check-in, as specified in our agreement," she reminded him, gliding into the office with silent steps. "Harry's educational progress review. He is progressing remarkably well," Dumbledore acknowledged. "Though in directions I find unexpected." "You mean uncontrolled by you," Wednesday corrected, taking a seat without invitation. "He's exploring magic as it truly is, not as British Wizarding Society has artificially categorized it. There are dangers in such exploration without proper guidance," Dumbledore cautioned. "He has proper guidance," Wednesday stated. "The triumvirate provides balance, Sirius's creativity, Remus's caution, and my family's historical knowledge. Your concerns are noted but irrelevant." Dumbledore sighed. "I have lived long enough, Miss Addams, to see where certain paths lead. The line between exploration and obsession is thin, particularly when it comes to certain branches of magic. The obsession comes from restriction, not access," Wednesday countered. "Forbidden knowledge becomes fixation. Harry is learning all magic in context, its origins, applications, limitations, and ethical considerations." "And the prophecy?" Dumbledore asked. "His preparation for the confrontation that must eventually come proceeds more effectively than your decade of neglect achieved," Wednesday replied coolly. "Harry understands now that magical strength comes from integration, not limitation. When he faces Voldemort, it will be with complete access to his abilities, not the restricted version you intended." Dumbledore studied the young woman before him, barely more than a child herself, yet possessing knowledge and perspective that challenged his century of experience. "You have changed him fundamentally, Miss Addams. I only hope the change leads where you expect." "I have no expectations," Wednesday corrected. "Only the desire to see Harry's true potential unrestricted by artificial boundaries. The path is his to choose." After she departed, Dumbledore moved to the window, watching as Harry and his friend studied beneath an oak tree near the lake. The boy looked up suddenly, as if sensing observation, and met Dumbledore's gaze across the distance. There was no hostility in his expression, merely calm acknowledgement before he returned to his companions. The boy who had once looked to Dumbledore for all guidance now saw him as merely one perspective among many, a perspective to be considered, perhaps respected, but no longer blindly followed. The carefully constructed narrative that had guided Dumbledore's plans for Harry's development had been irreparably disrupted by Wednesday Addams's intervention. Whether this change would lead to triumph or disaster in the coming conflict with Voldemort remained to be seen. But one thing was certain: Harry Potter was no longer the malleable piece in Dumbledore's grand chess game. He had become a player in his own right, making moves Dumbledore had never anticipated. And that, the old wizard reflected as he watched Harry laugh with his friends, might ultimately prove to be exactly what was needed. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.